We've arrived at the halfway mark of the SuperFoiler Grand Prix Breakthrough Series, and we're on the Gold Coast for the final day of racing. It's double points delight on a supercharged Sunday. And Jimmy, the gap between the SuperFoilers is really starting to shrink.
Yeah, we had a few teams really raise the bar yesterday and a few teams come unstuck in the tough Gold Coast conditions. So everyone's had a lot to think about. There's no room for error now. You need to bring your A game.
Well, the report card was high for our Saturday racing. Let's take a look and see how it all unfolded.
On a blisteringly hot day on the Gold Coast, pavement was late to the party and was bounced at the entrance.
What's happening with pavement? It looks like they're in a bit of trouble. Have they clipped something?
They're completely chicken winged up there. They're not going anywhere.
She wasn't the only SuperFoiler on the wrong side of the law. ID Intranet also logging off.
More trouble with these markers. Jimmy, what's in the water today?
And this is the tide, Nick. This is 3 knots of tide pushing them up the course.
In a location celebrated for its theme parks, it was wet and wild for Ian Jensen, on board the series frontrunner.
Oh, as we see, Coops is having a horrible time. He's gone for a swim and he's actually let go there.
Super gnarly situation, that one. You can see there's those appendages hanging down, the rudder and the centreboard, and your worst nightmare is coming off the boat and hitting one of them.
And I was trying to work out the best way to get off the boat without hitting anything, really. But in the end, I just sort of bit the bullet and unhooked and cleared the rudder, which was good, and the boys came around and got me.
The race eventually scrapped.
But we're hearing the race may have actually been red flagged. It may have been abandoned due to all the chaos.
The second Saturday skirmish, and again a problem at the start for Steve Thomas in the pavement trio.
And pavement making a meal of it as well as they drift towards our race boat there as well. Oh my goodness, what is happening today for pavement?
The fight taken to Euroflex in the next.
So I think we got him here.
Parko thinks he may have them. That's exciting.
Luke Parkinson sending the red rocket all the way to the line in a jaw-dropping finish.
And it's a close one. Oh my goodness! We've lost both of them overboard. Maybe he was trying to slingshot them over the finish to try and get them there first. Bail.
I thought we had him. I had a bit of a misinterpretation on the ruling there. I thought we had right of way, but we had to give him room, which we did. And I think Nath had to change his underpants after that.
A second between first and second, and the same margin in the battle for third and fourth.
We're going to have another really tight one here. And CJ from the heavens, well, he's back, baby.
More close quarter combat in the final race of the
This is where
day.
it gets shallow, and this is where it gets hot and heavy as well. They've called protest there.
Phil's trying to call water on the boundary. Euroflex trying to get him on starboard.
That was waved away, and by the second marker, the racing again came together. The times level in the race for second.
And a great gate there from pavement. They've really come back into the contest.
There was a close call at the start of the fifth leg as Record Point looked to thread the needle.
There he goes, up inside.
Oh my goodness, those boys have just hit. Hit Powers has literally just hit. They are touching and they are blowing up accordingly.
Ed Powys with too close a look at Phil Robertson's machine.
It doesn't come any closer than that.
As Record Point's Scotsman found himself isolated from his teammates.
Oh man, overboard on Record Point. That's Neil Hunter, the bowman.
But again, the dream team dazzled, powering to the line after another golden day on the SuperFoiler circuit.
And they've got plenty to boast about. That's 6 from the SuperFoiler Supremo. Checking out the regatta scoreboard after 6 races here in the Gold Coast, and it's Euroflex again with a clean sweep on 36 points. But here is where it gets interesting, that battle between Tech 2 and Record Point, 24 points each. And Jimmy, how about that? Our last 3 boats just 4 points separating them. Couldn't get any closer than that.
Yeah, look, they've all had a few issues so far and been battling with the really tough conditions out there. So, double points today. They're all going to have to up their game, and we'll see who can do that today.
You've mentioned the tough conditions. It's certainly a lot windier than yesterday. Whose favour will that play into?
I think that could go into pavement's favour. They've done a little bit more time in the boats, and they showed us in Geelong that they're happy in the breeze. So we could see a big move from them today up the leaderboard.
Well, as long as they can manage the current, that seemed to be the big issue for those guys. Jack McCartney, what is the latest?
G'day, Nick. G'day, boys and girls. It's great to be out here. The Gold Coast waterway is stunning today. We've got a steady 16 knots from the southeast, so a little bit more pressure than yesterday, but the same direction. We're expecting it to build a little bit, but at this point it's just been a nice steady 16 knots. We've got a little bit more current than yesterday, so between 3 to 4 knots, so that's going to make it very tricky again, but great conditions. The boats have their little mainsails on, so that'll make it a little bit easier for them to manage around the course, but they're already belting around everywhere at the moment, so expect some action.
Jack, what do they have to do better from last time around? How can they manage that current more effectively, particularly pavement? They seem to particularly be undone by that.
I think having the experience of yesterday and Friday, they've now got their minds really switched into where the current's running hardest, what part of the course to stick to, what the obstacles are, so they're more familiar. So I think late yesterday afternoon we saw a lot of the teams doing some excellent jibes and manoeuvres, and they were getting around the track really evenly. So I think today you can expect it to be quite even around the racetrack, and that gap between Euroflex is going to be narrowed for sure.
And in terms of the gap as well, obviously there isn't too much of a gap between the machines in terms of distance. They really are throwing down the challenge and getting up nice and close. More of the same, do you think, or will they back off now that we've got double points on the line?
There won't be any backing off, Nick. It's I think everyone's getting more confident with the boats, and the fact that they've got the little main on, I think everyone's going to throw the boat around a little bit more. So the rubbing is racing thing, I think that's going to be prevalent today, yeah.
And we can see people have really got some good vantage points out here on the Gold Coast on that sandbank where we were, Jimmy. Hard to imagine a better place to watch a sail racing there.
Yeah, look, this is absolutely awesome conditions for the last day of racing today. I'm sure the teams wouldn't rather anything else, but there definitely would have been a few nerves before they left the dock. There's definitely a good breeze on today.
And in terms of those nerves, there will be some nerves amongst Record Point. At the moment, they are in podium contention and they haven't been for the series so far. Does that add any more pressure?
Yeah, we've seen them have some really good moments throughout the series in Adelaide and Geelong, and they've just come undone at certain points, and particularly in Geelong on the last day. So they've really got to just hold their nerve today, and I think these conditions are going to favour them. I think we could see them step up today and really convert to the end of the series.
And so much experience does Phil Robertson have in this kind of scenario, that almost match racing. Will he look to just match race Tech 2 and shadow them and make sure that he has every move covered there?
Look, I think initially he's just going to go out and sail his own race, but it is interesting you bring up this style of racing. There's certain boats out there that have had a lot more experience in this tight boundary scenarios, and Phil Robertson is one of those sailors that this is all he does. This is his bread and butter. Tight courses, short races, multiple races a day. This is where he's really going to perform.
And I know in the America's Cup circuit as well, obviously they race in waterways of all kinds of conditions, and given we have so many America's Cup sailors in our fleet, that would play into their hands perhaps?
Yeah, for sure. The more veteran America's Cup sailors like Glenn, Nathan and CJ, they're going to have a really good handle on this. We've seen quite a lot of that racing a few years ago in the America's Cup, so yeah, they'll definitely bring some skills to the table as well.
It's not long to go now, seconds away from the start of our first double points race on our Sunday session.
Happy to go somewhere here. Here we go. Little back on the jacket.
Coffee? Going very fast here.
On, lots of cano.
Going bigger, guys. We're part of racing for the team here. Yeah, let's go. We are racing. Going action to play forward there. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
So boats racked up really tight here. You can see the orange flag and the checkered mark. That's the line. And there you go, Euroflex really punched on that line. They've got an awesome start. And Cleanmate as well, gotten away nicely under the pack. She's got her own breeze. She can sail wherever she likes.
And so far for Tech 2, they've probably got their nose just in front, and as I say that, they close the gap almost immediately to Record Point.
Yeah, everyone right up on the foils here, going really fast. They're going to be doing 16, 17, 18 knots upwind. And it's going to be who gets the first boundary, who's going to have right away to hit that boundary and tack out.
All those kites in the sky there give you a great idea of just how windy it is. If you've got anything that can float at the moment, it's up in the air and filling with the breeze, as Euroflex does exactly that and continues to assert her dominance over the rest of the field, although it is still very tight here. Jimmy.
Yeah, so you see Record Point just getting bounced there by ID, who have come out with rights on the boundary, and Tech 2 and Euroflex got a little get out of jail free card, and they've gone another 100 metres up the boundary, which could pay off up the beat.
It's always a good time to use that card early in the race, get that out of the system. We saw a few wobbly moments from these guys. Ian Jensen came off flying in one of the races yesterday. Said there was a bit of equipment issue there. He couldn't quite get off, but he looks to have sorted that out as Pavement bury it in the Broadwater.
Yeah, so Pavement have got a really interesting technique here, and we saw it yesterday. They've got their both main foils down, sailing upwind, which is something we have not seen yet at all. So these guys are running with this new scenario, and basically it gives them a higher angle upwind, and they can foil a little earlier, similar to the downwinds. And it's interesting. They made it pay off in the last race yesterday, but before that I'm not so sure about it. And you can see here they're saying that higher angle than the rest of the fleet, and they will be a little slower. So an interesting trade-off by them. We'll see how long they can make it stick here.
Well, if anyone should know about it, it will be those guys, Reece Mara and, of course, Steve Thomas, heavily involved in the development of the Superfoiler. So they've got the hours in the water, the know-how, perhaps, to make that stick. But, of course, Euroflex, they're the three best foiling sailors in the world, bar none. An America's Cup winner in Glenn Ashby, and, of course, a steerer, a helmsman during the campaign there for Artemis in Nathan Outeridge, and Ian Jensen are also part of that setup as Tech 2 has some room to wriggle on up and pull the trigger and just give Euroflex a little bit of something to consider around the first marker.
Yeah, so this is the first top mark. It's a rounding to port, and you can see that tide ripping the boats left to right on your screen. The tide's ripping at about 3 knots, so that's extremely fast. And you can see there as they rip the boats away, sailing downwind on one foil, going for max speed here.
Paul Campbell-James making the most of that as well with a better line. Looks like Cleanmate's gone pretty wide there, Jimmy.
He's not coming out.
Yeah, so a bit of an overlay by Cleanmate there. They're just going to get swept even further, and you can hear Olivia Price just saying she's going to sit in for the bearway and keep it nice and safe. It also helps them turn down the track, and Paul Campbell-James on ID has made an awesome move here. Euroflex just getting completely eaten up. Phil's going to jibe on top as well.
And he doesn't have much real estate here with the marker there and Record Point up higher of her. Oh, they're really looking like they're a pack mentality at the moment, Jimmy. Euroflex with a target on their back, and all the other Superfoilers just getting ready to squeeze them and squeeze the trigger, as ID Intranet is the machine that's making the most of it so far in our first double points race.
Yeah, for sure, the fleet can taste blood. There's been a few finishes now where Euroflex has only won by 1 second, and they're not going to have another bar of that. And they're all ganging up on them now, and you can see Tech 2, awesome foiling jibe right in front of Euroflex there.
And now it's Phil's turn to block them out as well. It's like that pesky mosquito in the bedroom. Everyone's just looking to slap it away. And so far, they're doing a pretty good job of ridding the big challenger.
Yeah, so Record Point's absolutely lit here, just going straight over the top, round the outside, indicator on.
And at the moment, Euroflex, well, she was sitting in fourth, but she is roaring back into it. If not, looking a little loose. And who have we lost there? It's a thumbs up, and it looks to me like it's Goobs again.
Goobs has gone over again, so a big cavitation there on their foils. Foils just losing grip, spinning out, and Nathan just completely losing traction, losing all his steering.
Well, it's 2 swims in a row for Goobs, Ian Jensen there. You don't see that every day. The best in the business coming undone, and this could be the sniff that the rest of the fleet really need, and they've got lucky and come back a few times, Euroflex, but this is double points. That's double trouble for them.
Absolutely, that's a huge mistake. You could see there they've broken some of their elastics on their trapeze wires, so that's going to hinder them for the whole rest of the race. They won't be able to get out on trapeze as easy, and their manoeuvres will be compromised. So that was really gnarly right there. So full ventilation on that main foil, ventilated the rudders too high out of the water, and completely lost control and spun out in the tide.
Well, ID will be loving this. Paul Campbell-James will just be licking his lips at the prospect of putting serious metres between them and, well, anyone else, but particularly Euroflex at the second game.
Letting snow, high, big spin, big swing. Yep. Back forward up, big swing.
So there you can hear Phil calling for big swings. Means they're coming in hot to the mark. They've got good pressure.
Where's the speed?
And they're battling right now. They're going to have one more manoeuvre in.
I mean, look at that picture. That's the first time I can remember 4 machines in front of Euroflex. This is a big moment in the series now.
Yeah, so CJ, who's been a little slow off the mark at this regard, is really hitting his straps here. He's out in front, he's got a good lead, and Luke Parkinson on Tech 2 just nipping at his heels, and Bill's just struggling here with that tide once again. He's thrown one manoeuvre, he's going to have to go back again, and he's still going to be following that fleet, so not an ideal scenario there for record point at all.
And Cleanmate looked like she's picked the line very nicely there. Olivia Price lining that marker up as I curse her, unfortunately, showing so much pizzazz at that moment. So windy out there, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, so we've got it. Here comes Pavement looking to go round the outside on Olivia. You can see how painful it is for these teams as they underlay these marks. They have to go slower and slower, and then the tide just starts pulling harder against them, and they're almost getting just dragged away from that mark. And as soon as they round, they're just going sideways really fast, and it's just hard to find that groove.
Well, ID are driving along at 20 knots at the moment. CJ's treating that thing like he's just boosted it. It's a stolen car, and he's going to just race away here, knowing that he could well be the first man to knock off Euroflex in our entire series. It has taken 3 locations. It didn't happen in Adelaide. It couldn't happen in Geelong. Maybe, just maybe, Jimmy, this is the regatta happening on the Gold Coast where Euroflex finally slip up.
Yeah, I think this could be the one, and the floodgates might open here. You never know. This could be on a bit of a roll for the fleet. You know, rattle the cage of Euroflex haven't had too many issues so far, so it's going to be interesting to see how they react here.
They're the teacher's pet of the series. They're always in the good books. All of a sudden, they're writing lines on the whiteboard. They're in trouble. Can they find a way out? This is so unusual for them to be so far back, nearly 800 metres.
Yeah, amazing stuff here. You can see that Nathan Outridge has got everything under control now, and they're nice and chilled. They're just going to chip away, try and get one boat at a time here. Not go out on too big a flyer, but I think if they just sail consistently, they'll get a couple boats back. And Tech 2 stuffed the leeward bow under.
And they've done really well to reel that in.
They're on the mark.
Right? Yep. That's around the mark.
Back to jib.
Well, that's quite a speed bump, Jimmy. You don't see that every day.
Yeah, we've got it, guys.
And it looks like they're linked in. Let's listen.
Yep. Jib off. That's you, Aiden.
Aiden Menzies jumping in the tide there. There's a T-shape on the bottom of that rudder.
Which side, brother? Forwards or what? He's jib. Careful, mate. Just careful. He's on grab.
Record point whizzing right past as Tech 2 has some serious issues. And look at the run of the current and the breeze.
Yeah, so you can see all that choppy water on the right of the screen. That's the tide line, and that's where the tide's really going to start ripping. There'll be deep water there, and the current will be running faster there than anywhere else.
Jimmy, talk me through what happens here. We've virtually got a moving race course. The marker's changing every second.
Yeah, so this is quite common. Basically, everyone just has to go around Tech 2 now.
Sweet, we get a second. Okay, we've got to get this, guys. Side toe, please. Side toe. Yes. Quickly.
So massive issues here. You can see Tech 2 is being blown almost downwind. The tide's sweeping them downwind. They have this T angle on the bottom of their rudder, and the chain on the mark will be wrapped around that. So it can definitely cause some damage, and it's just extremely hard to get off.
Yeah, and look, Sam Newton's jumped on the support boat there. Holly as well at the back lending some support. And that's the picture, isn't it? I mean, brother, you got a rudder and you got some issues there, don't you?
Yeah, so just super tough situation there. There's almost nothing you can do except for cutting the rope, which we saw yesterday.
And they're going to have to abandon this race right now because it's too much commotion there as the marker moves. This is not the first time we've seen this, Jimmy.
Get out, reverse.
And it's all well and good to say reverse, but the SuperFoilers don't have a reverse gear as they get really close to the jet ski there. as well, rendering some services. Those Pro Guard boys will be in there. Someone...
Nice, beautiful,
We need Crocodile Dundee. You call that a knife?
Really
This is
good.
a knife. That's what we need right now. Holly's probably carrying one. She's a jack of all trades. She's probably got one in her back pocket.
Forward a bit.
Yeah, super painful situation, of course.
That's perfect.
Getting your fingers in around the chain, rubbing on the carbon foil is a really nasty spot to be, so you can see them getting in there. They've got to try and cut that free. There's a lot of stress being put on the boat here, and it's not great for the gear. Hopefully they haven't done any damage to their rudder foil, because the smallest chafe or nick in that rudder foil can sort of severely damage your sort of foiling speed.
And Sam Newton looked like he was just reclining on a pillow for a while there. Very
Hang in
comfortable
there,
stuff.
Sambo.
And just getting some words of encouragement from Luke at the moment. Hang in there, buddy. And it looks to me, Jimmy, that they are free finally from the biggest headache you can imagine on race one of the day.
Yeah, extremely tough situation there, and Luke Parkinson is pretty good in those sort of situations. He's the kind of guy you want around. He's always got a level head. He's always straight into fixing the problem, not blowing up at anyone, just trying to fix the situation as quick as he can.
Aiden Menzies back on board now, stepping in. Spare rudder he's calling for there.
Get here, please.
Asking for a spare rudder and getting a love tap there from the support boat, the official support craft there.
Yeah. I'm just going to bear away before we get into pain.
And can you see any damage there?
Yeah, so you can see a big chunk out of the foil about a foot down from the boat. And good thing that it's nice and high. The lower down that it is towards that T section, that's what we're going to be flying on for the majority of it. So a nick up that high in the foil is not too much of an issue. Just not sure how much damage he's going to have down low on the crucial part of the wing there.
Jack, a bit of commotion on the racetrack for a change here in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, Nick, you guys are missing the story here. ID's the first winner other than Euroflex. What's going on?
Oh, we're enjoying seeing Tech 2's calamities so much. Jack, will those points count given the race was abandoned, we're hearing?
You bet. So the way that this works is that we finish with the first gate rounding. So the positions that they went through, the bottom marks, is what stands, and that definitely counts. And we have a new winner.
Jack, I know you put some money on the line there for the winner, the first person to topple Euroflex. What are you looking at? What's the bill?
It's actually one of our close allies, Andrew Coppin. He's put 500 big ones on the bar for the ID team. So thank you, Coppo.
That is very generous. Are you going to head down there with the boys, Jack? Can I come?
Absolutely. I'm not sure that you can come, actually. I'll think about it.
Good stuff, Jacko.
But that was pretty good. There's really tricky conditions again, and it was good to see the fleet, ahead of the Euroflex. So it just shows everyone's improving very quickly. So stay tuned.
We will do that, Jack. Thanks for the update. So Euroflex, their trouble was really exasperated there because it's double points. CJ has just added 12 to their ledger. That's going to sit really nicely for them. That is a great get. As we take a look at the results from race 7 as they stand, ID swooping 12 points there. Tech 2, despite them causing all their headaches, that's a get out of jail card if I've ever seen one, Jimmy. 10 points for them. Record point a minute back, but surprisingly, not only didn't they win, it's also their worst result ever. Nathan Outeridge and the gang on Euroflex, that's going to sting like salt in the wound there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's bad timing for the Euroflex, and a good one by Parker there, just causing a bit of calamity and obviously getting the race abandoned. So now that's a massive win for the ID team. They'll be stoked with that. Full credit to them. They had an amazing race up to that point. So yeah, they're doing well.
It's simple. All you have to do is just let Euroflex trip up and then cancel the race by any means necessary.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen them make a few mistakes now, and unfortunately they haven't had to pay the price just yet. They've sort of snuck back in with 1 second or jagged it on the line, but you can't be that. The teams are improving, and those small mistakes are going to start to cost them as well.
And just look how that chalks up. We are in business at the moment. Euroflex's lead reduced to just 4 points. That is nothing. Tech 2 are the next best. Record points still ready to strike on 32. And ID come from somewhere really smartly. They're on 25, and Cleanmates still impressing on 22. Jimmy, what a grandstand finish. We have 2 races still to come, and plenty of points on the line as well. That too was super costly for Euroflex.
Yeah, it's all on now, and there's no mistakes that can be made from here from those Euroflex guys, because you know, there's always someone that's going to be sailing clean and someone who's going to have the hammer down. They don't have the speed edge that they used to have, and the fleet's really closing the gap now.
And really making them pay for the first time. That is a good omen for those chasing boats. And psychologically, they'll think to themselves, all of a sudden, we're not trying to negotiate the rough seas anymore. It's not dangerous and rough and bumpy. Maybe it is smooth. Maybe once we're there, we can hold on. We can win. That'll be a big shot in the arm in terms of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone will be licking their lips now. They know that it's all on, and knowing that the points for the series win here in Gold Coast is now so tight, yeah, anything could happen here for sure.
It's a bit like a washing machine out there on the Gold Coast, and they've just put Euroflex through the rinse cycle there. They'll be looking for more of the same in our next, and I can't wait, Jimmy, to see who it is that lands the next hammer blow against our mighty mare, Euroflex.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. It's amazing that ID's got up there because, you know, the last 2 days they haven't been sailing that well and things haven't been going their way. So, you know, to come out and jag the first one's a massive confidence boost for them. And interesting to see Record Point not sailing so well there. Be interesting to see if they can bounce back and convert this next race.
I imagine that would be a bitter moment for Euroflex, given they have been so dominant. To lose in those circumstances would really sting.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have a little reset here, I'm sure. Everything's nice and calm. They're all very experienced sailors on that boat. So, you know, they're just going to focus on getting this next start right, trying to do their homework on the start line and just get everything back in order.
It's taken 21 races for someone to knock off Euroflex, but Jack's with the man who's managed to do just that.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, here with CJ. Mate, well done. First winner other than the Euroflex.
Yeah, it's nice to beat them. It took enough time, but it's nice to beat them.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's pretty tricky conditions out there. Can you go forward a touch? Yeah, that's pretty tricky.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, obviously that second lap, it all piped up a bit. We underlaid the committee boat. The windward mark, and had a bit on at the top mark, but not quite as much on as Tech 2. So yeah, it was good. But that first run was where we made it all. You know, we did well on the upwind, but yeah, we actually did really well on the downwind, lifting the board up and just going one foil for that starboard across the middle. And I'm not quite sure the top speed, but in the mid-30s, and felt pretty quick.
Yeah, it looked quick. We better let you get out of here. This is atrocious. So good luck in getting in.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Look at that, mid-30s for Paul Campbell-James, the team member of Ben Ainsley Racing in the America's Cup. Reckons he's eking out mid-30 knot speeds at the moment, so it's wet and wild out there and certainly very fast. And this could shrink the gap even further if it's hard and fast. That's going to suit Tech 2 nicely as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting they're saying that they're going with a single foil downwind on that last run, and the wind was up a little bit more, so it's, with the flow of the current going from the bottom to the top of your screen, it's sort of helping them get on those foils a little bit early and helping those top speeds get right up there. So that could play really differently. It's going to make the boat feel very different as they sail, and they're all going to have to sort of adapt to that if they start going to a single foil downwind.
We've spoken a lot about the current and the wind, and here's another reminder of some of the treacherous conditions the sailors have to encounter. It's also the sandbars. It does go from very shallow to very deep quite quickly. And, well, that's not bad airtime, is it? That's almost superfoiling in its own right there, and he deserves to wear the cap backwards. He's one cool dude and getting some pretty good airtime there, Jimmy.
Yeah, there's a few kiters out here and a few of the hydrofoiling kites, which is pretty cool to see them, that sport's sort of taking off in the direction as well. Everyone's got foiling fever, but yeah, the superfoilers are going to need a little bit more water than these kites are. For, as you said before, there's no guarantees on the boundaries. Everyone's sort of sensing how deep it is in front of them, and if they're on the foils, they might push a little harder. But yeah, trying to call room on those boundaries and make sure that they don't hit the bottom.
This guy is going to be loving this. He's going to call all his friends. I really hope he hasn't chucked a sickie at work, because if he has, it's game over. The secret's out. He's out there enjoying the Gold Coast's airtime, and he's going to land on the houseboat if he's not careful and going for a cold one. Look at that. How good is the Gold Coast? Turning it on. And the winds, well, it's free. It's there for everyone. And they haven't managed to tax it yet, so it's free fun.
Yeah, absolutely. As Jack said, it's sort of getting up 16 to 18 knots, which for these boats is really towards the top end. That's extremely windy. It may not sound like that for a sort of traditional sailboat, but 16 to 18 knots is full on in these boats. And as you heard before, 35 knots downwind on trapeze is not to be laughed at. That is really, really moving.
And there's surfer's paradise we're getting a look at there, and just learning that Coppo's put 500 big ones down on a bar tab for ID. I imagine if you are looking to meet some of the world's best sailors, you'll find them nursed somewhere in Surfers Paradise a few hours after racing. And ID have got cause to celebrate. They'll be there with their sponsors, toasting their success. It's taken 22 races for a new winner, but we got there in the end. Almost one of the longest winning streaks in world sport there, Jimmy, for a while.
Yeah, not far off, but yeah, I think, I really do think that the floodgates might open here, and we've seen so many races, 3 or 4 races that Euroflex have won by a single second, and as I said yesterday, they've used all their lucky cards and there's no more left, so they're going to start paying the price for these mistakes.
They've spent all their bullets, and all of a sudden it's looking like it's gone from a cakewalk for Euroflex this regatta, so they're going to have to really defend their position. That margin is nothing. I mean, finishing where they did has punished them massively.
Looks like
yeah, absolutely. That's taken a huge chunk out of their scorecard with this double point scoring on the final day. It's really crucial that they get out on the right foot the next race, because they're going to want a little buffer going into the final race. You want a little margin for error in that final race, but they could definitely see that lead vanish.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting scenario at the moment. We're getting an idea of how windy it is, and I would imagine Euroflex would be looking for any excuse to nurse the lead all the way home to the piggy bank here, and potentially look to, if they can take a breather, then they might look to do that. I mean, it's a strategy. You want to win the regatta, don't you, Jimmy?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to win the regatta. Really interesting tactics here. So it's it's obviously a very short race, that race, having to be abandoned halfway through, and Luke Parkinson completely landing on the top mark. You can see how tough in that previous shot these boats are to handle at low speed. These boats are designed to foil, and they're designed to be going fast. And when you slow down, you do a bad tack, you go sideways, you've almost got no steerage, the wheel doesn't work. So if you're not moving forwards, you've got no control, and that's just how he keeps ending up on that top mark.
No doubt about that. And Jack's trying to suss out whether or not the sailors want to keep racing. Jack, what's the mail?
So I'm just doing a little survey, because they are very tricky conditions, and what we just saw with the Euro, pretty dangerous situation. So I'm just running a few questions by the team, how everyone's feeling before we make any further decisions on the next race.
Thanks for the update, Jack. It's very important to have safety front of mind. These are the fastest machines on water, and of course you have to take every precaution to make sure safety is front of mind. We all want to see racing. We all want to see these things unlatched and sending it down the course, but of course safety is paramount.
Yeah, as I said before, 18 knots is full on racing. You can see Steve Thomas here thinking about it, and Reece sort of nodding his head.
Is that why you're asking? Yesterday was windier, but it doesn't feel that way.
There you go, so getting something from Steve.
Yeah. If it's 14 knots, yes.
So Steve Thomas there just saying, look, it feels like it's a little windier than yesterday, but he wants to be out there. I get the impression if racing was to be suspended, Steve would stay out there anyway and put Reece through the paces. What do you reckon?
Yeah, he can be a bit rough on the crew, old Steve, but it's all for a good reason. He loves to go training, and these guys have had such little time in the boats, they'll be looking for any excuse to get going. But big difference today to yesterday is they do have the small mains on today, which yesterday they had the big mains on, so that's quite a significant difference. And you might be thinking that that's a total reduction in power, and that's just going to help them get through the tricky spots in the course. The small main will help them bear away at the top mark and help them in some manoeuvres, but I tell you what, in a straight line, they're just going to go even faster. So that's the trade-off. They need the small main to get through the hard parts of the course, but once they light it up in a straight line, they just go even faster with the small sails.
Yeah, it's a bit like being on a jet ski. There are plenty of those out there, and plenty of good vantage points for the course. Look at that swell, Jim. It's really rolling in there, and Mother Nature's just being a little touchy today, a little twitchy as well.
Yeah, we saw some epic surf conditions this morning. It's solid 6 foot on the beaches here, and this could be one of the best swells of the year that's on right now. And there's been some amazing waves ridden this morning, and I know a lot of the sailors are surfers too, and had a good look out the window this morning. But yeah, it's definitely tough on the race course as well, with that massive gust lull difference where they're tucked in on the broadwater there. And yeah, really tough conditions. You see more and more kite surfers getting out, and yeah, that's a good sign that there's breeze.
I don't mind the parasailing position there. That is a really good spot to check out the course and get a feel for who's got the best line into the markers and whatnot. And some really nice Instagram spots around the Gold Coast. And I know our team's done a great job of capturing some of them. And Jimmy, I love your Instagram. It's a cracker. But the SuperFoiler one's the one I'm going to give a plug to. You've got to follow the SuperFoiler Instagram. It's got some great snaps. And I think we should send out our photographers to that headland and get one as the waves start to lap up there against the rock wall. You get a really nice snap there. Would that make your filter request?
Yeah, that's definitely the shot there, I think. The SuperFoiler Instagram, the app, it's all really good. Constant content going on there, and they've done a really good job. It's awesome photos and videos coming out of these boats, and we're just getting some footage that we've literally never seen before on sailboats. The crash that Luke Parkinson had yesterday, guys swinging on trapeze at over 30 knots. It's absolutely groundbreaking stuff. Haven't seen anything like it before ever.
I thought superfoiling was dangerous, but I reckon taking a selfie out there might be just as dangerous. They say never turn your back on the surf, but some tourists might find that lesson out the hard way. Make for a great story though, wouldn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened before. There's no shortage. Maybe we'll send the pro guarding guys out there to lend a hand. Oh,
they'd be there in a whisker, those guys. They're really on the pulse, and we've had some great support from the City of Gold Coast, from the Water Police indeed too, Jimmy, to make sure this operation runs through smoothly. It's been squeaky clean. And whilst they have been great support, we so far haven't been able to commandeer a jet ski and go for a ride ourselves. I will say I'm disappointed about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm a bit disappointed about that. We'll have to word up the pro guarding guys and see if we can jump in on one of their tow surfing sessions.
I don't want to go with that guy. He seems like a cowboy out there. He's a real pirate. But I mean, look at this waterway, and it's so nice to see it being shared with powerboats, sailboats, kite surfers, fishermen, swimmers, and just pleasure craft across the board.
Yeah, it's such an awesome location to be on the water, and that's the best place to view the racing today. And it's cool to see such a big spectator fleet lining the boundaries of our race course and really getting down to watch all the racing and the action out there.
So good that the spectacle is free. You can go and watch on a vantage point on land, or jump on a marine craft and be in the thick of the course. I mean, there really are a lot of options if you want to be out there in the thick of it. And that guy could have a whiplash claim for his insurance company if he keeps that up.
Yeah, they're dangerous crafts, the jet skis. Maybe a little more dangerous than the superfoilers in the wrong hand, but we give them a pretty good run for their money, I think.
And we talk about safety a lot there, but Reese Talby, very sun smart there.
Chuck the water bottle off behind the traveller.
Yeah, look, all the teams have really solid shore crews here, looking after all the boats. They have to be working absolutely perfectly, or it can get extremely dangerous out there. And no one knows the risk better than the sailors themselves. There is a lot of risk being taken. Very dangerous speeds happening out there, and things we haven't had to deal with before, but I can assure you no one's more understanding and on top of that than the sailors themselves.
No doubt about that. As we get a good look at the boundary here, obviously we've got an exclusion zone in play, and that's only further enhancing the experience, that amphitheatre atmosphere too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool there with the sandbar right on that boundary. Such a good race course that's just naturally lined there.
Oh, and this is just such a nice day to be out on the harbour. If only the wind was a little more forgiving. We could be looking at a postponement here, but by the look of the grin on Phil Robertson, he's going to want to stay going as long as humanly possible. He's battling for his first podium of the regatta series to date.
There's just not much space either way, and that swell is huge on the boat.
Yeah, Phil's good for heats here. He's keen to go training in anything, and sometimes he suggested, I'm not sure about his decision, but he'll definitely be getting some time in between races here. And I don't think it is too windy. I think we will hopefully see another race, and they've just got to get that new mark laid, and I'm sure we'll see some racing soon.
Jack, have you got an update on the state of play?
I do, Nick. We're going to go into a postponement. There's a couple of boats preparing. Bit of window, and just let the conditions settle in what we've really got.
Looking to see those conditions settle down a bit. Sounds like a sensible call. What kind of damage have some of the boats sustained aside from the rudder damage of Tech 2 there, Jack?
That was breaking up a little bit, Nick, but I think you're asking about the damage on Tech 2's rudder. They did collect the anchor, the chain on the top mark, and that's done a little bit of damage to the front edge of their rudder. So they're having a look at that at the moment, and the cleanmate's got a little issue with their main sheet. So not huge issues, but things that we want to give a few minutes for and just let the boats get settled, and we'll just make a decision following that.
Thank you, Jack. As we take a look at Tech 2, just having a closer inspection there on the state of play. Do they carry the spare? Would they be able to pop one in there, another rudder? Would they have time?
Yeah, look, there's all the boats have quite a few spares and counter for instances like this. If it is bad enough damage that they need a spare rudder, they might throw that on, or they might just be able to repair
How is it down there?
But the quite a cool thing is all these boats are exactly the same. So this is a one design class, and everything you see is the same from boat to boat. We have a generic shore crew that works for SuperFoiler, and all the boats are exactly identical. So no one's got faster foils or faster sails, different design, this or that. It's all the same, which means that the best sailors in the world are competing on the exact same craft, and we can find out who the true winner is.
You don't get that in any other sport, do you, Jimmy, being on an even playing field like that, perhaps where the expression even keel originated from, because it is all square. Although that being the case, as we see, racing has been abandoned for now, that, you know, other machines aren't going to necessarily donate their equipment to a damsel in distress, as it were.
No, certainly not. And I think, a few teams aren't going to be too happy with Tech 2. They caused the last race to be abandoned, and they picked up a second place because of it. So the other teams might be going a little bit bad on those guys, but we'll see how they get on here.
All the tricks in the book, Luke Parkinson. He virtually wrote the book, I think.
Yeah, awesome to see here. Look at this. Phil absolutely sending it. He does not mind the breeze at all. Neil Hunter, Sam Phillips in the middle there on the main sheet. Those guys are absolutely no worries in the breeze. They're all awesome sailors. Sam and Neil originating from the 49er class, and so much experience in that boat. They're not fussed at all.
And incredible to remember too that Sam, he has been a revelation for Record Point, but he was a last minute inclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam jumped on last minute in Melbourne in the Geelong event, so he did an amazing job to just jump on that boat. And their first day in Geelong, they were coming second. They almost beat the Euroflex over that line in that race. And Sam was just completely at home on the boat. They've really started to gel now, and you can see that in the results. They're all really starting to click as a team and get it all together in the full package.
Aidan Menzies there just going through the wardrobe. He was the man initially that was off to try and rectify the situation, but then he was joined by Sam Newton. Just taking the chance to dry off a little bit.
Beggars can't be choosers, bro. Yeah.
He's keeping the chat up, old Parko. He's just made a bit of a mistake there, and he's still throwing his crewmates under the bus. Gotta love that.
Yeah, no, look, Parko's always in good spirits, and he's good for the breeze as well. The guy's sailed, he's won the Volvo Ocean race, so 16 to 18 knots is nothing for him.
3, 2,
amazing to think in the Volvo Ocean race he negotiated, the big offshore terrain without any great drama, and he's in a racetrack and he manages to run over the top of one of our markers.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's done a really good job there, and look, he's not going to be too impressed with that, but I think he's gotten away not too bad out of that situation.
Nathan will jump on, have a check if you want.
The Euroflex guys there. It'll be interesting to get their thoughts on whether racing should continue or whether we should continue the hiatus and kick things off again. If you had to bet, Jimmy, what would you say they'd be looking for?
Look, I think they'd be willing to race. I think they're comfortable in these, or not comfortable, but they back themselves in these conditions. And I think Gooby, after his life flashed before his eyes yesterday as he was hanging under the boat, might be having second thoughts, but I'm sure he's got it all together now. And they're at the utmost professionals. When the breeze is on, they're so good at handling those nerves and handling all those emotions, and look, they'll be ready to race if they need to go. And
there's our Wyndham cruise liner. It is a spot you really want to just sink in and stay for hours on end. Unfortunately, they only get to go out for 4 hours and see the racing. I reckon they'd want to stay even longer. Look at that, you've got the flat deck area there, a nice vantage point of all the races, and even some SuperFoiler cushions I'm spying there as well. I think our cameraman's got the best seat in the house there. Yeah, get him, huh? Can you steal one of those pillows for me, please?
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad on the VIP boat, does it? They're getting the definitely the VIP treatment there as well.
Fantastic, yeah. And again, just an example of, give us a wave, guys, fantastic. Just a great example of what the experience is like for the Superfoiler circuit. It's not just the racing, it's also a chance to catch up, network, hang out with friends, and pretend you know a thing or two about sailing, which I've been doing for years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the sailors, a few of the sailors jump on there afterwards and they sort of get to know everyone and do a few interviews, which is really cool. And the sailors literally pluck straight off the yacht, straight onto that boat. So fresh off the water, and that's a perfect day for it right now.
And the VIP flag flying proudly there. Got to get ourselves one of those so we can get a car park at Superfoiler headquarters, Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how we score one of them, but it's just really interesting to see the conditions out there now. You can see it almost looks like a river out there. It's just rushing that hard with those standing waves, and the boats sort of slowly making their way back downwind here. But they're sort of still in control. I think there's still a good chance that the breeze could just ease off a click and we'll get back underway. But it
doesn't look like anyone wants to go home just yet. It's their first course at a degustation menu, and they paid for it all, so they'll stay for dessert if they can.
Yeah, exactly. You saw Steve Thomas there. He thought the conditions were certainly saleable, and it's very, very interesting out there at the moment. But the biggest factor here is obviously the current, and that's playing such a big factor. You can see those times when they come up to the marks and they get it a little wrong. That leeward hull sinks under. It just gets gripped by that tide, and it really almost causes a capsize. And obviously, we saw those enormously high speeds downwind, 35 knots. It's like being shot out of a cannon on this sort of track. It's so short, the acceleration's so high, it all happens very quick.
It sure does, and a good moment, I guess, in a way or two, just to take it easy for some of the sailors. Jack, what's happening?
Yeah, Nick, just here with Nathan, skipper of the Euroflex. That was in that stoppage during the first race. Condition happening out here while we've gone into post.
It's pretty fresh. We're seeing probably 20, a bit more than 20 at times, but the biggest issue is this current. We've got 3 knots of current ripping out, and it really compresses the fleet on the downwind because you're sort of struggling to make progress. And as you saw, with a compressed fleet like that, all jibing close together, all it takes is the boat ahead of you to slow down, and you have to do a wipeout like we did, and just happy Goobs and Glenn are okay.
So the biggest issue here is basically the boat speed.
Yeah, the boats are incredibly fast, and they need quite a lot of space when they're going that quick. And with the current going against us, those downwinds sort of, you don't get as far down the boundaries as you want to get, and so you end up just jibing at each other. And that's fine when you're doing sort of low mid-20s and you've got control, but when you're in the 30s and you're just hanging on for dear life, it's less than ideal.
So what actually happened there where you rounded up to miss Phil? You look like you also got a gust and accelerated at the same time.
Yeah, well, the wind's a bit left off the land, and so it's a bit puffy on starboard, and we were coming up behind Phil, and it looked like he sort of went down a bit of the swell that's rolling in here and sort of slowed down a bit. So Glennie's like, we'll go above, and just at that moment we get a puff, so he's smoked the sheet and he's basically eased as far as he can, and I can see Phil's head in my bow, and I'm like, if we don't turn up here, we're going to take him out. So we had to bail out of that situation, and thankfully the boat was okay, only the people were okay.
Goobs became the cannonball, so it's pretty extreme. What sort of speeds do you think you were doing?
We would have been doing over 30 at that moment. You know when you're going quick, we never have any time to see how fast we're going, but we would have been doing 32s, and I think Phil was probably doing about the same. All of a sudden he's doing 20, so you're going to come at him at 10 knots. And the steering options on these boats at these kind of speeds are very, very tiny, and that's why I think it's pretty full on out here.
I think we were treated to some pretty spectacular racing on Friday and Saturday, and we really, I think, were surprised by the Gold Coast waterway with how tight it is, the current and the spectator boats. But today we're just seeing that wind limit just making it that little bit too narrow.
Yeah, I think, 12 knots, we've been able to fine. And, say we're in Geelong right now where there's plenty of space, this wind strength wouldn't be a problem for all of us. When you are going speeds, you really need to let it going, and the boat will be fast and really cool to sail, but we just need to be let out. It's kind of like racing a Formula 1 car in the car park at the moment.
Thanks, Nate. We'll leave it with you, Nick, for the minute, and we'll give the teams a little bit of time to have a breather, and we'll come back to you in 10.
Racing a Formula 1 car in a car park. That sounds like to me, a lot of fun, but potentially very, very hazardous. And Nathan Outteridge, he's the consummate professional. He's obviously an Olympian, a gold medal winner, a silver medal winner, an America's Cup sailor, but the kids just love seeing him down there. I was at the Southport Yacht Club the other day, and he's got time for all the kids and having a chat to them, and they're really excited to have someone like him in the series. And well, as exciting as it would be, probably not a great idea to take a Formula One car and do Dodgem cars.
No, definitely not. And yeah, it is amazing. No, Nathan's definitely one of the superstars of the sport, and it's so cool that people can get down and just meet the sailors and see the boats. And interesting, him just talking through that situation there. He basically got puff of the day right as he was coming up behind Phil there, and we saw the boat accelerate, the boat come really high onto the foils, and yeah, suddenly, you know, you've got that 10 knot sort of speed differential, and you know, you're either going to crash one way or the other, and luckily Nate's got some of the best reactions in the fleet, and he's able to just flick the boat out of that situation and keep the boats from colliding, and obviously Goob's getting flicked off the boat there, but still out of harm's way. So good reactions, but extremely tough situations with those big gusts and lulls. And as Nate mentioned, that current just ripping out at 3 knots, it's giving extra flow over those foils as they sail downwind into it, and it does just make the boat a little more flighty and just get up and going a little bit quicker. And that's something he's going to be used to, along with the other America's Cup sailors in the fleet that raced in San Francisco a few years ago for the America's Cup. They did a lot of dealing there with the tide and the current changing directions and how that affects your boat. So that could play into their favour here if they get going again. Really how they use the tide and how the boat will feel and sail up and downwind.
Yeah, his spidey senses would have been tingling there, knowing that you know, it was going to be a close call with record point, and obviously made the smart decision, but one that would ultimately cost them the race.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of sailors really pushing the boats here, and we're always trying to avoid that boat-on-boat contact for sure. That's the number one thing that we don't want. We've seen a lot of crashes from people, you know, swinging off the boats and capsizes and all kinds of stuff, which we're all very much in control of, but always trying to keep the boats away from touching for sure.
And for Goobs, Ian Jensen, obviously his second inspection of the sandbar there in as many days. Do you think you'll just be giving a little bit of a ribbing to Nathan?
Oh, look, Goobs is starting to get used to it. Nate's thrown him off the boat more times than he's had hot dinners at the moment. We saw in Sydney in the pre-training that he flung Goobs so hard that he did the big swing on the trapeze wire and actually went above the rig at one point, and where Gooby thought, nah, I'm not coming back down, and just unhooked his wire and fell back into the ocean. But yeah, I think Gooby's starting to get used to it now.
They're such good friends, aren't they, Nathan Outteridge and Ian Jensen? They really are thick as thieves, those two. I've been trying to cause a bit of drama, you know, a bit of back talk behind each other's backs. You just can't get either of them to bite. They really are like brothers, aren't they? If I didn't know better, I'd have to check in and see Goobs' birth certificate and make sure he wasn't born in Wanji as well, like the other Outteridges.
Yeah, they're a crazy combination, and it's amazing that they're both originated from so close to each other on that Wanji sort of area on Lake Macquarie. And we see a lot of good sailors come out of there, and they're a really tough duo to beat. You know, there's not many combinations that have sailed together for as long as they have, probably 10 years or so now together. And yeah, they're pretty formidable.
No doubt about that. And they must get to the stage where they don't even have to talk to each other. They just look at each other and communicate on another wavelength. And on a boat when it's ripping with wind, that's got to be an amazing advantage to have.
Yeah, 100%. They're so tuned in together, and we see from the onboard audio from Euroflex, there's really not much being said at all, especially not between Nathan Goobs. We see Glenn Ashby making a lot of calls on counting down to the tacks and the jibes, but those guys can pretty much sail with their eyes closed, and they know what they're all thinking, and it just so happens they're always thinking the same thing because it's usually the right decision.
Yeah, well, they are dialed in, there's no doubt about that. Every move's a winning one usually, and that's why it was so surprising to see that they were almost boxed in. They had no other alternative, and that's not a position that the chess master on the helm there, Nathan Outteridge, usually lets himself get into. He's usually about 15 moves ahead of... He's usually on to the next game before anyone's even moved the first pawn. So that was surprising to see, and I guess an indication of how difficult conditions are today.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows the margin for error is so small on these boats. The big difference with these to most other yachts is their manoeuvrability, you know. They can only sail through a very small range and a very small angle once they're doing up over 30 knots. You see them when they're doing under 30 knots, you know, they're very manoeuvrable. If they have to, they really have to, they can bail out, come up or throw a quick jibe. But, you know, once your boat's rattling along at over 30 knots, it is incredibly fast, and a smaller slip on the tiller there can cause a huge consequence. We saw it yesterday with Tech 2. Once you're doing those high speeds, skip a little wobble on that tiller, makes himself unbalanced, and all he's got to hold on to is the tiller. So once you're unbalanced, you just make the situation worse, and the boats just manoeuvre so easily on these foils. You know, the boat will just do an instant 180 and kick everyone off.
Well, we've already heard from Euroflex's skipper. Let's catch up with the bowman.
Yeah, Nick here with Ian Jensen, otherwise known as Goobs. Goobs, you got flicked off the boat there at a high speed. What happened?
Yeah, we were actually just coming in the fill really quickly. Nate sort of spun up really hard to avoid a collision. But yeah, Glennie got ragdolled on the windward side, and I got ejected out to leeward. A lot of G's when we're coming up. I thought we were pretty lucky not to capsize. Sharp up like that, you're in trouble. But.
What goes through your mind when you feel the boat getting out of control like that?
Mate, to be honest, happened so quick. I was just thinking, I hope I don't get hooked on anything here. I was moving through the boat pretty quickly. I think, yeah, if we had held straight, we would have been straight over the top of them. So probably would have been a bit of damage and maybe some injuries. So I think Nate did the right thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame to have man overboard. Cost us some spots on the third day.
How do you feel?
Yeah, it was only a matter of time, wasn't it? But yeah, we were actually in all sorts. We had broken trap lines and fair few tangles after that crash, and it was taking us a little while to get everything sorted and get the boat going again. So it would have been hard. Yeah.
I was just chatting to your skipper. What are you thinking about the conditions at the moment, and what do you expect for the day?
Yeah, it's definitely top end. To be honest, if there was no tide, it would be nice and saleable. But I think at the moment we're sort of seeing 20 to 22 with a couple of knots of tide. So it's top end. If we go racing, I'm happy to go racing. But yeah, it's right on the limit.
All right, thanks, Goobs.
No worries.
If we go racing, he's happy to go racing, but he might need a new bib there because he's absolutely covered in something. So he's obviously hit something on the way down there, old Goobs. But love hearing that. If it's racing, I'm there. I'm first on the line.
Yeah, exactly. These guys are professionals. You know, when it's go time, they're ready to go, and they don't let that phase their thinking. They don't let them get that out of sorts or the nerves or anything. You know, whatever the race officer says, they're happy to do. And just interesting hearing him talk there. You know, as a sailor, you've been in many situations where the situation's going bad, and usually only have one, maybe two options of where your body's going to end up or how you get out of the situation. And it is that natural instinct that takes over. And one way or another, you know whether you're going the right way or the wrong way, and you know how to protect yourself and make sure that you don't end up in too much problem there. So we just saw that.
Was that Cadell Evans? I didn't realise he was from this part of the Gold Coast, but there you go. I mean, whatever you want to do on the water, it goes here. Whatever goes.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's you can see those kite surfers just multiplying. The kites are probably getting smaller as the breeze gets up higher, and yeah, they'll be having a great time. I know a lot of the boys out there are kite surfers. I know Reese Maher would probably like to pump up his kite right now and get out there, but yeah, hopefully we can still see another SuperFoiler race and see those top end speeds once more.
Yeah, interesting to hear the consideration there was about the wind, probably within range, but the current is just what's tipping it over at the moment. And by the sounds of things and looking at the picture there, the current's probably not going to go anywhere. We need the wind to drop. Yeah, that is the case. So yeah, we do have the tide sort of moving out through the breakwater there and heading from the bottom of the course up to the top. And yeah, it is just that tidal factor that makes it a little bit more difficult to get downwind. That extra flow over your foils makes the boat very twitchy. You know, often the boat really turns, you know, extremely sharp, but it's just even sharper with that tide up a little bit stronger. And yeah, everything just gets a bit more on edge. On edge, sure, but I mean, for Ian Jensen, he didn't seem too phased. He's always smiling, isn't he? I mean, his record run has just come to an end, an abrupt and wet end, if I can say that, Jimmy. And he's just ended up in the water, and he's still smiling. It's all good. He loves it. He's a character. Yeah, he's all good. Yeah, tough situation thrown in the water, a big chunk of their lead taken away, and you know they're going to be a little on edge whether they do go racing here or not. I have just heard from the water that we got 16 to 20 knots, so maybe it's dropped down just a crack.
As well.
You can hear Phil talking there as well. saying it'll be fine. You know, just got to be careful, just got to stay switched on. Yeah, I think, if the race officer says go, Sal's going to be like, all right, let's go.
So would you expect all 6 to jump in and all 6 superfoilers to say, yeah, we're going racing? Or do you think they might, 1 or 2 might say, no, not for us, not worth it?
No, I think you'll definitely see everyone pull the trigger and go racing here for sure if they do go. There is a little bit that can be done to dial the boats down a little bit, but it is tough. You know, you really do need to push them hard to keep them safe. It's a little bit of an odd concept if you're not used to these sort of foiling boats, but when you try and slow the boat down or control it too much, that's when it'll kick back, bite back, and things go bad. So you need to let the boat run, let it sail, keep the speeds up nice and high and that manoeuvrability, and you'll stay out of trouble. But for sure, team against team, they will be looking out for each other a little bit more. You won't see the extremely tight bottom mark roundings or the extremely tight top mark roundings. Hopefully they will just have a little more awareness of each other. Where's that other boat? Often there's big blind spots. You can see the little windows in the sails there. We have a little window in the jib and in the main, so they can just get a glimpse through the sails of what might be there, and they're going to make a little more use of them and just not throw caution to the wind as much as they might in a little bit less wind.
Olivia Price giving a chaser a wave there. And having a laugh too. What about for ID? I mean, they've just effectively won a race. They must be itching to keep that momentum rolling on. I would imagine of all the machines out there right now, they would probably be the most eager because they've got the most to gain. We've seen them climb up the leaderboard a little bit already. They're still not on the podium quite yet. They're not locked away there. Surely for them, they'd want to be the boat most pushing the envelope.
Yeah, absolutely. Momentum goes a massive way in this sport of sailing. You know, if they could have rolled straight into another race, I'm sure CJ would be stoked, and he's just ready to go again. And now the whole fleet's been able to sort of reset, and you know everyone's able to get their thoughts together and go again. And you lose that advantage of that momentum from the previous race. And yeah, you can see Phil there. He's keen to go.
Now, I can't see the America's Cup winner on board. Where's he hiding at the moment?
Yeah, maybe Nathan Goobs are practicing for a bit of two-up sailing. Glennie might have some other commitments at the moment, maybe.
Probably spinning a yarn. He's a great storyteller as well as being an incredibly accomplished old mug winner. He's also an old storyteller, Glenn. He can spin yarns with the best of them. Yeah,
Glenn's real good value, and you know, he's just a pure adrenaline junkie, you know, whether it's boosting his motorbike across like some desert racing in Australia, you know, sailing his A-class, sailing the SuperFoiler on the America's Cup boat, anything to get a thrill, and yeah, Glenn is into it.
Let's hear from the man himself.
So, here with Glenn, the third member of the Euroflex team. Finally, you've been beaten.
Yeah, look, it's one of those days. It was going to come at some stage or other. Pretty top end conditions today. Some pretty exciting sailing. So we had a bit of a wobble on the downwind, and just got a little bit behind. And with the race finishing a lap or two early, made it a bit tough to get back into it again. But that's racing, and that's what we're used to. And it was going to happen at some stage. So why not today?
So obviously that was a pretty marginal situation because of the breeze, the speed, the proximity. Tell us what's happening on the racetrack at the moment with these conditions.
Yeah, look, it's pretty top end. The boats are obviously difficult to sail, and we were sort of going downwind right up behind Phil Robertson and the boys there, and we're sort of accelerating quite quickly coming behind them and had to sort of bail out before taking them out. So we ended up not quite capsizing, but having quite a good wipeout and lost all our trapeze wires and bits and pieces. So we sort of were pretty much toast for getting on the wire for quite a while, which was a shame. But I think with the tide hopefully changing soon, that'll flatten the water off a little bit. The biggest problem at the moment is actually dealing with the swell that's coming through the small gap here. So, getting launched off one of those and planting it in frontwards is not ideal. But I think as soon as the tide settles down a bit, we might be back on.
I think the racing's been sensational here on the Gold Coast. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's narrow, it's tricky, but gee, it's close.
It is. It's fantastic yachting and an iconic venue for this type of racing. And I think we're very, very lucky to be able to sail here.
Nice one, Glennie. Well, we'll see if we get another racing. Good luck if we do.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Back to you, Nick.
Not sure if the seatbelt necktie is going to catch on there from Glennie, but I love his zinc. He's taking a leaf out of Shane Warne's book, and it's going to catch on, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's a good look from Glennie. And, you know, a lot of these professional sailors, we just never see the winter. You know, you spend all year in the sun, you're sailing all around the world, and the reflection off the water can be brutal. So, you know, it really pays to try and get out of the sun as much as possible. And, yeah, Glennie pulls it off pretty well.
Polarised lenses were in fashion a while ago, but they're out of vogue at the moment, aren't they? Why is that?
I'm not too sure about that one. You'll have to ask him.
Oh, well, record point for them. It's the chance to finish the regatta on the podium for the first time. And with so many friends and family journeying across from New Zealand, I know Phil will want to put on a show for them. If anyone's itching to get on, it'll be Phil, I would think, as well as CJ to continue his winning ways. Any tense words, do you think, at the boat park today between the Euroflex crew and record point, given it was them that caused Euroflex to hit the ejector, to jettison Cocoon?
Possibly, yeah. I can tell that Phil's a little bit upset at the moment. He wants to go racing right now. He's annoyed because he was tight on points with Tech 2 in second place. After what's happened in the race that we've just seen, now Tech 2's in front of record points. So Phil's essentially in third place right now, I think, and he's not happy about that. So he really, really wants to go sailing, do another race, and he's even saying, you know, if you guys can, I'm just going to keep training.
Well, it's good from Phil, and he's certainly been on a rapid trajectory of improvement since the Adelaide Regatta, where they, record point, were very unlucky to lose you, Jimmy, due to injury. And since then, they've rebounded really, really well.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see. You know, you have an injury and you need some new crew. People fly in, they see the boat, they spend an hour with the boat, and they jump on and they race. And that is just phenomenal. And, you know, extremely tough to get some good results, but, you know, to sail the way that they did was really impressive. And, you know, Sam Phillips, day one in Geelong, you know, in second place after that had happened, and, you know, he'd just seen the boat. He'd sailed it for sort of a couple of hours straight on, and it's amazing to see how adaptable these sailors are. You know, you get the right guys in and they can just perform instantly.
Am I right in saying that Phil even had trouble remembering his crewmen's names at times?
Look, there's a chance of that for sure. He would have had to get used to Neil Hunter's Scottish accent. That one can be a little tough to get used to.
Oh, but, I need subtitles for Neil half the time. Great guy, but hard to understand.
Yeah, you even find just sailing with anyone that speaks the same language, but sailing with new people call things in sailing completely different words all the time. You know, we have our sort of sailing language, but then there's the lingo that just goes to a whole nother level when you sail with Australians and Kiwis. So sometimes half the battle is just understanding what your mate from Australia is trying to say, let alone the Scotsman on the boat. But
absolutely. I had a similar problem with Phil today, actually, on our way to the racetrack today. He cut me off at the lights, and I saw him in his right to drive car, so I knew it was him, and I followed him all the way to the boat park, and I said, mate, you cut me off. And he started laughing and said, oh, was that you? I was just doing a bit of drifting. Obviously very safe. He wasn't doing anything dangerous, but I just thought, gosh, these guys are racing all the time. The marginal gains mean everything. If he was going to beat me and steal my car park at the Southport Yacht Club, then that was a win for him. And he seemed pretty chuffed about it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's chasing a thrill around here, and, you know, you can just see that how they're all just itching to go sailing here. And, you know, sometimes the sailors don't take their own safety into consideration. They just want to go. They often need to be looked after and have someone else make the decision for them. Otherwise, they just never stop.
Well, our race committee is the best in the world, and no doubt the decision they make will be one with safety front of mind in delivering what is a world-class spectacle. So I expect a decision will come soon on that, and I equally expect that Record Point will stay out there for as long as they feel they want it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. You know, it's often when the race is cancelled or it gets really windy, if they start the next race in a few minutes, everyone's fine. Everyone's got the same mindset, okay, no worries, let's go. When you start sitting around and it is getting windier and it starts to play in your mind, you start to get those nerves, and you don't want to sail this boat nervous, I can tell you that much. Whenever you step on this boat, you've got to be confident, you have to be ready to go, otherwise you're just going to make mistakes. You cannot be hesitant, you can't be nervous when you step on these machines. You know, if you do the same in a Formula 1 car, any other high performance spot like this, it just brings you undone. You can't do things by halves here.
No, and you can't drive a Formula 1 car slowly. It's just not safe to do so. And same with these SuperFoilers. They're designed to go fast, and you're just trying to tame them. And Phil's just saying there, we've raced in this much. Come on.
I'm no better than Steve. That's two for him. 1,
I haven't lost hope yet. I haven't lost hope. I'm like Phil.
Quite around to the left now, isn't it?
Phil wants to go out there. He's got no doubt about it. He wants to keep racing. I heard a bit of a barb directed towards Steve's direction. I didn't quite catch all of that. But I think he's probably saying, if Steve's good to go, I'm good to go. And we know that Ian Jensen's good to go and ready to go. It sounds like we've almost got a quorum here. Should we just get on the piper to the race committee boat and let them know we've got a show of hands and we're good to go?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the old 18-foot skiffs back in the day. If one boat left the beach, then it was on and it was up to the sailors. But unfortunately, the game's moved on a bit now. And with these boats, we do have to look after the sailors' safety and the safety of the boats as well. We've got to keep them in one piece and get them around Australia for this series. So we can't just be a full free-for-all, but yeah, it's definitely just right on the limit, and it's just wavering on the wrong side. But, a classic tactic to try and convince the race committee that it's all fine is to just go for a sail and be like, look, there's nothing wrong. And maybe that's what Nathan Outteridge is up to here, just going for a little sail. Look, no problem, guys, let's go.
Well, if anyone was going to make it look easy, it was going to be Nathan Outteridge and the Euroflex guys, and they've done that. They want to get back out there. That's great to see. They could have easily just tried to surrender their lead and nurse this one home, but they want to win in style, and that says a lot about the three on board there. And I'm glad you mentioned those other regattas, Jimmy, because we are at the halfway point of our series at the moment. We've got 2 more regattas coming up, one which I'm particularly excited about in Busselton. It's going to be a great chance to get on the west coast of Australia and see some racing in azure waters, some of the cleanest waters in the whole wide world. That's coming up. And, of course, the Sydney Harbour Climax, the grand finale, where a lot of the sailors are from. They hail from Sydney. Both of those events are going to be great. Head to the SuperFoiler website, check out the details. If you're around or near at that time, make sure you go. Make sure you see the world's best, because while they are fantastic to watch streaming or on your TV, I can tell you they're so much better to witness in the flesh.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you never really can get your head around how big these boats are. You go and stand next to them, you see how wide they are. It's just phenomenal, the leverage that these boats have. And when you see them flying and you hear the noise for yourself when you're next to the boats, it's really something else. And as you said, Busselton is going to be an amazing event. That crystal clear water, you can actually see the shadow of the flying boat on the clear crystal blue sand underneath the water there. It's such an amazing venue. That enormous long pier just creating that natural boundary for the racing. It's got it all, Busselton, and we can count on the wind there to pump in. We got the doctor down there, and I'm sure we'll have amazing conditions. And yeah, as you said, for the finals, Sydney Harbour, it's rare for us to be able to bring big foiling boats like this to Sydney Harbour, and it happens every now and then, but it's just such an amazing opportunity to see these boats sail on that harbour, and such a great backdrop. I'm sure that'll be a fitting final for the series.
Absolutely. There will be fireworks there, as there's been fireworks already on the Gold Coast, some blue ribbon racing already. As we can see, Paul Campbell-James, the winner of the last race, is just starting to wind it up a bit. If anyone's got a message for the race organisers, it's Phil, given his dad is on one of the boats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, CJ's dad, David, is the race committee, and he's a world-renowned race officer. He's definitely one of the best men for the job. He's going to get it absolutely spot on here, and he's done an amazing job so far. And yeah, as you said, CJ's nailed that first race. He's down the standings a little bit, and he needs to go again here to get another good race in, and so that he can move up.
And that's the machine that's just ahead at the moment of ID. It's Tech 2. They've had a remarkable series already. The big incident in Adelaide where, to use your term, they detonated. They had some serious boat damage. It looked like they'd be out for weeks on end. Somehow, through sheer will and determination, the team at Innovation Composites built a replacement part. The boat team worked nights on end, round the clock. They were sleeping in hammocks in the containers at the boat park, working through, getting it ready, and then somehow she made it to Geelong and was starting to threaten there. And as we've seen on the Gold Coast in our third leg of the 5-leg series, she showed that she was missed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an amazing job by those guys, and the Shore team has been going literally around the clock for many days along this series. They string the hammock up in the container, and they just do shifts. They just go all night working on the foils, working on the boats, getting everything back together. and it's been an amazing job by them, and they're continuing to slowly develop the boats, to develop the electronics. We've got the guys sorting out the buttons to control the foils, and there's been some good developments there. They can now, the front crew member, the bowman on the boat, can now trim the leeward foil as well if they have to. They can obviously as well trim their windward foil, and the skipper got those 2 sets of buttons on the tiller bar when they're sitting on the boat, and on the tiller extension when they're on trapeze, and they can play both the rudders and the leeward foils. So an amazing amount of electronics going on the boat, and they can capsize these boats, put them upside down for 30-40 minutes, pull it back upright, and everything still works like clockwork. So it's just been an amazing job by those guys to get all this programming done, and they're just going to continue to develop that, and that will allow these boats to manoeuvre better and better and better as the sailors progress.
It is an evolving machine, and we've got an evolving scenario on our hands at the moment. I wonder if Jack knows more.
Yeah, so here with Parko. Parko, you got away with the second, but you hooked up with the top mark.
Yeah, we're not. We're happy with the second, but we're pretty disappointed in ourselves. We thought we could have gone one better there. It was a pretty tight race, and this tide, it's tricky, and it's caught us off guard.
So what are the key issues that we're all facing here with this sort of breeze and tide and speed? What's going on?
The whole race course is on an elevator, basically. So when you're going upwind, it feels like you got a lot more wind, and then the reverse downwind, less pressure. So downwind's pretty tricky, especially for the guys with the smaller jib up. CJ and ourselves have got the big gear up, so that's helping us downwind, and we're holding on to it upwind.
So what do you reckon? Can we expect another race? Looking at it here, we're just waiting for the tide to settle down. Do you think we'll get another race in?
Yeah, it's right on the edge. We've had a couple of short periods under the wind limit and some sustained periods over. So if this tide dies down, we might get one more in before the day's out.
So you mentioned the big jib, little jib. Just tell us a little bit about the rig sizes and what range that gives us.
So everyone's got the small main up today, and everyone in the fleet except ID and Tech 2 have the big jib up. And I think we've gone for the big jib to help us get downwind. It helps the speed build out of the jibes, helps the foiling jibes, and we think there's more to lose by being slow downwind than upwind.
Okay, thanks Parko. Well, good luck for the rest of double points.
Yeah, hopefully someone else is in the action for a change, and we can slide through under the radar and have a good result.
Sounds good.
He's got a wicked sense of humour, Parko, sliding under the radar. I don't think he's ever been under the radar his whole entire life. Usually he's the biggest blip on the radar. He's the kind of guy that makes his presence felt in whatever capacity, whether it's racing really fast, whether it's picking up markers, dragging them along, causing a general nuisance, or whether it's working hard on the boat. He's always there putting in 110%. In fact, to get to this regatta, he drove 1,000 Ks plus with Fang to get a part here.
Yeah, they're sort of moving some parts around Australia, which is no small venue at all. Yeah, I think they went from where the factory is down in Nowra in southern New South Wales all the way up to Brisbane. So putting in the hard yards to get their boat from event to, or get some parts of their boat from event to event. And yeah, awesome work by those guys. But they're from Perth, so Fang's driven from across the Nullarbor from Perth to the East Coast 10 or 11 times and has been doing it since he was a real young kid. So those guys just drive those sort of distances, no worries. I'm sure under 2,000 Ks is just down the road for them.
I hope Fang has some good music for that car journey, because it would be a long one, many hours, no doubt.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, but yeah, Fang and Parko used to campaign the 49er together in the Australian sailing team, and they were the training partners for Nathan Goobs leading into the London Olympics. So they've been sailing together for a long time, and they've been training against Nathan and Goobs for a long time, and a big relationship there. They've been sort of sailing together, living together for quite a while now.
And yet they're not on the same boats. Obviously, Fang Jasper Warren's on the ID boat, and his amigo, his head hombre, is steering ID, is steering Tech 2. So that's interesting. I wonder how that dynamic plays out. We've spoken a lot about the dynamic on Euroflex between two such good mates in Nathan and Ian, and then I guess you've got the split mentality. We've got Parko on Tech 2 and Jasper Warren Fang on ID.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of sailors within the fleet that have sailed together with each other or against each other in various different circuits around the world. And an amazing thing about sailing is sort of, the lifespan of a sailor. That we see sailors here from 21 years of age like Lockie Gilmore and Harry Morton, and sailors, in this sport all the way up to, late 30s and in other foiling boats older than that. So what's quite cool is you grow up as a kid, you know, you might be 12 or 13 years old and you have these idols, and, you know, before you know it, you're actually sailing with them, sailing against them. And that's just one of the most amazing things about sailing, is that, you know, the career lifespan is quite large, and that's just such a cool factor of this sport.
It was nice of you not to mention Glenn Ashby's age then, because I imagine you would have been off the Christmas card list had you have done so. Is he one of the guys you're talking about? I mean, surely you've looked up to his amazing list of accomplishments, and not just in the America's Cup, but obviously in the Olympics and World Championships as well. He's the king. Yeah, for sure. And Glenn is from sort of humble beginnings, just a country lad near Bendigo there. He grew up, and now, you know, I'm from Melbourne. He lives just down the road from me, and, you know, a massive inspiration for me when I was growing up. And as you said, so much success, a silver medal at the Games, multiple America's Cups. I think he's got over 15 world titles. It's just absolutely phenomenal what he's been able to do in the sport of sailing. And he's the man that's on the front of this foiling curve. He's the one that's been pushing the sport really personally for a long time, and part of the development that has got the sport to where it is today. So, yeah, for sure, you know, one of the sailors I definitely looked up to as a younger guy, and yeah, now to race against him and stuff is quite amazing. It was amazing in Geelong, actually, such is his lustre as a sailor. People were coming up to him and saying, "Oh, you know, Glenn, I remember you from, you know, 1987 at the, you know, Bendigo wheelbarrow race," and blow me over every single time, and it was genuine. It took Glenn about 5 or 10 seconds, and then the penny dropped for him. He's got amazing recall. He'd have people all over New Zealand coming up to him, I'm sure, wanting to give him a pat on the back and buy him a beer. And he's got time for everyone, and he genuinely knows half these people. It's incredible. Yeah, he's such a genuine guy, and such a nice personality, and yeah, just so down to earth. He's also a sail maker in his own right, got his own business, so he makes a lot of sails to different boats, and you know, he's just always pushing the sport. He's got his own A-class, got his own moth. He's doing everything he can to always develop, and that's a big part of these sports. Is, you know, you can sail on these series, but you've constantly got to be sailing the fastest boats, developing the sport, or you do get left behind as a sailor. And, you know, everything moves so fast that it's hard to hang on. We may be on here. I half caught some action there from the race committee boats saying that we're ready to race, so that'll be very exciting if that's true. Just heard Tech 2's ready to go. Here we go. So I think we are going to be on for a race here. Not sure if the wind's dropped or they're just going to send it anyway, but one way or another, I think we might see some action here. Well, that is fantastic. All the sailors said they wanted to be out there if they could, that it was on the limit. We could see some fireworks. Strap yourself in, Jimmy. We could be going racing here. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's just going to have to buckle up here and get on with it, because we're going racing, and, you know, they're going to drop that AP, and everyone's going to be in a bit of a scramble to get ready. So we'll see who can get their ducks in a row quickest, and, you know, this start's going to happen before they know it.
To close the channel, and we're going to race as soon as we can.
Look, that's great news to hear that over the race radio. They are going to close the channel back again, so the water police will get to work. They'll extend the boundary. They'll get everyone out of the racing zone. And once that happens, we're slated for takeoff. Yeah, exactly. You know, sailors are so good. We spend our whole lives sailing, and that means that we spend our whole lives as a victim or a benefit of the breeze. So we spend a lot of time sitting around waiting, you know, maybe there's no wind or too much wind, and then suddenly the switch is flicked and it's go time, and you've got to get ready. You've got to switch your mindset. You can't have any hesitation or nervousness. You just got to go. You've just got to pull the trigger on occasion. And I know you said the other day, Jimmy, the best sailor is the happiest sailor. Who would be the happiest about this heavier kind of wind? Look, I reckon Phil Robertson's probably a good candidate to be the happiest sailor out there right now, and that's going to be a massive factor. As I said before, you know, you can't get on these boats nervous, and you can't be hesitant, and you definitely can't be nervous or hesitant as a skipper. You know, when you are crewing on these boats, your life is in the hands of the guy driving the boat, and you need a lot of confidence, and you need to back them to get you around the track in one piece. And in good stead. So, you know, it's a big relationship there. You know, you've really got to have a lot of faith and
and trust the guy that's holding onto the tiller and trust the guys standing in front and behind you.
That's one of the things I've found particularly remarkable is how close as a unit all these guys are. They get to the boat park at 6 a.m. in the morning, they're working through. If they're sailing, they're sailing. If they're not, they're tinkering. And then at about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, they'll get together as a group, talk to people around the club, share some tall tales, and then they'll go and have lunch together, dinner together, until 9 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock they'll go to bed. They'll text each other good night, bedtime stories, nursery rhymes, whatever they get up to, and then they start it all again.
Yeah, absolutely. We do end up, we spend most of our lives on tour, and that means, we're living together with each other for most of the year. So, you really need to surround yourself with some good guys, and there's a lot of trust that builds, and you find yourself in some very tricky scenarios throughout your careers with certain people, and that builds some really good bonds there. And yeah, exactly. You've just got to be really tight with the guys that you're sailing with, and especially on a boat like this, it's so demanding. There's really no margin for arguments or disagreements. You need to be so tight as a team, and they're the ones that are going to sort of prove the best results as the racing goes on. And you can just see here, the fight to get downwind, it's often a little bit nervous. It's super windy, you're above the line, and oh god, we got to bear away and get below the line. They're just trying to keep the pointy end in the sky here until the race starts, and I think we're going to have 3 laps, port rounding, so same plan as last time. It's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out and how everyone gets off the line here.
And given that they haven't been racing now for a while, will that make it harder for them to get back in the groove? Do they have to treat this like race number 1?
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, that switch has been flicked, and so's your mentality. It's game time, go time. You gotta get ready, and you just instantly, you're looking upwind. Which way do we want to go up the beat? Is it better left or right? Do we want to start on port or starboard off the line? What's our tactic downwind? Which gate do we want at the bottom? For boats like Phil and Tech 2, Phil will be thinking, do I want to stay near Tech 2, keep the game close, or do I want to just split and force a situation there and force a hard decision for Parko? So all these internal battles start to develop as we get to the end of this regatta. Obviously 2 races to go, and this is where you start to focus on other boats, you start to focus on the leaderboard and the points, and it's all about getting on that podium at the end. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the tactics here. It will be different to other races, and as I said, you don't want those nerves getting in the way of all that.
And just at moments there, we got a little hint as to how quickly these machines will be travelling. They'll absolutely be smouldering along the Broadwater here. Expect to see some new fastest times, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be some big speeds downwind. We'll be seeing mid-30s, I think, and that's pushing into 3 knots of current, so ridiculously fast speeds. And don't underestimate how fast that feels on water, and don't underestimate how fast that feels on trapeze. It pretty much peel your eyelids off.
Do you expect to see the machines give each other a little more water here than they otherwise would, just as a courtesy measure, or would you expect Record Point and Tech 2 to rub shoulders?
This will be the last race of the day.
And we've just heard there that this will be the last race of the day, so they're going to be one and done here. This is their time. They've only got to get around the track once more. We'll see who can make it stick. But yeah, as you said, they're not going to slow down, they're not going to dial back, but they might give each other a little bit more room. That's the only thing that might go on here. There's going to be a little more awareness, a little more safety factor. Check under your jib, check under your main. Is there someone there? The pro guarding guys that we've got in charge of our water safety on the jet skis will be on full alert here. This is going to be a big race for sure.
Jack, how is our final race of the day going to play out?
It's going to be action-packed, Nick. There's still no shortage of wind. The current's still flowing, but we feel it's just settled down enough for us to get a race in. So, as you've heard, most of the teams are pretty keen to get a race in. So, let's wait and see all the action.
By my calculations, Jack, just 6 points separate Euroflex, Tech 2 and Record Point in the battle for first. How critical is it going to be for those 3 to 1, finish, and 2, finish ahead of their nearest rival?
Oh, very critical. I mean, it's the do or die, Nick, so that's going to make for an epic battle.
Will they all want to be out racing at the moment?
I think the majority do. I think there's a little bit of trepidation. Obviously, with the nature of these boats, you're doing 30-plus knots in a tight, narrow waterway. I think, as we've seen in those interviews, it's not so much about the manoeuvres and about managing the boats. It's just the narrow waterway and the thought of having to cross behind one another, in very tight proximity. So that's the biggest risk. But everyone's pretty happy to get out there. And looking at it now, it looks raceable. So here we go.
Jack Attack, tell me this. Strategy, do you go full gas here or do you just try and make sure you definitely finish? I'm talking about Euroflex, Tech 2 and Record Point.
Keep it clean. I think whoever keeps it clean will win.
6 points, there you go. Got to keep it clean, keeping it cool down on the water. Jack McCartney there. 6 points, Jimmy, between our top three machines here. Goodness me, we're set up for a nail biter.
Yeah, so I think, I'm no mathematician, but by my calculations here, I think it's going to be who beats who out of Record Point and Tech 2 in this race. So obviously we have double points, and if we end up on a tie, whoever wins the last race should win. So Tech 2 and Record Point, who beats who's going to win. And in terms of getting that top spot on the podium, I think Tech 2 will need 2 boats between them and Euroflex. So if Tech 2 can win, Euroflex in 4th, they could take out the regatta here.
Wow, what an upset. I wouldn't have thought at the start of the day that Euroflex would be needing such a good final race to guarantee her victory. She's won almost everything. Indeed, she's only lost one race of 7 so far, and it's all going to come down to this, our final race. I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat. Make sure you've got something in reaching distance to hold on to. Grab on and feel the G's as we go racing. The Gold Coast Regatta will be decided in a few moments' time. And let's not write off CJ either. He'll be looking to try and climb up the leaderboard with a win as well. He's not completely out of contention either at this point in time.
Yeah, so CJ's really going to need to pin his ears back here and just get a really good race. He's probably going to need a win and need a little bit of magic down the scoreboard, but anything can happen here.
So many races within races. Record Point Tech 2, they'll want to edge each other off, and everyone will have their eyes on Euroflex as well to see if she can win her 3rd regatta in a row.
Yeah, and it's amazing here. What you can see is the escalator that is the tide moving left to right. The pin end is all the way on the right of your screen here. And they're just moving sideways so fast at the moment. That's just the current ripping them upwind, and they're all just struggling with this low-speed boat control.
Cleanmate coming into the thick of the action there as we have all our machines almost in synchrony there. Look at that.
15 seconds to the start.
15 seconds to go here. There's the checkered buoy on the middle of your screen.
And look at Tech 2 and Record Point. Those guys are going to be holding hands as they cross the starting line. Everyone's clear, but there is a battle on here.
All clear that start, but we've got a penalty here, either on Record Point or Tech 2, I think.
We'll watch that closely, because that's where the battle for second is in the overall regatta standings, as someone's going troppo on that whistle.
Penalty to Tech 2. Sorry, penalty to Record Point there. Phil Robinson's got the penalty.
Well, Tech 2 will be loving that. Phil Robinson will be furious. Jack, what was that all about?
Nick, so that was Tech 2 hooking Record Point at the start. They luffed them up, they didn't keep clear, and as a result they got a penalty. So they've got to tack twice, so tack and tack, which they've completed. They're now clear to race.
Thanks for the update, Jack. It's so good that they don't draw these things out. They just do them straight away, and then it's back racing. And talking of racing, how about this between ID, our last race winner, and Euroflex, our stablemate champion?
Yeah, ID's really up the game here. You can see Euroflex just struggling to keep that flat boat trim there, and he's really trying to pinch ID off as he forces him into attack.
Goodness me, these machines are close right now. This is brinkmanship at its best. Who's going to blink first? Who's going to yield? And who's going to get the boat travelling at top speed for the longest time?
So here we go. CJ's pretty wicked up there on port tack out to the right-hand side, and he's leading Euroflex out to that side, which is a good sign. He's going to come back off that boundary with right. So he's going to have the power in his hand here as he comes back onto starboard tack.
Well, Ed Power has the best view of the race course at the moment. He's at the very front. He's on the bow for ID. And at the moment, he's looking at an open track. CJ Campbell-James can really dictate terms at the moment, can't he, Jimmy?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see it's windy. They're all standing quite far back on the boat. But still, same rules apply. Trying to fly that middle hull as low as we can. We want it out of the water, but not too high.
Spectacular vision here.
You can see that choppy water just in the background there. That's the tide line. That's where the current gets absolutely ripping in that deeper water. And you can see here, CJ's going to round right on Euroflex, and it's going to be all about this rounding and who can stick the most foiling jibes downwind. As we see Tech 2 in the top of your screen. Another battle with record point. Phil's got some wheels. He's catching up, trying to pass again.
Fantastic comeback from them, given they did have that penalty. They've addressed that quickly, and they've got the speed up superbly.
And that's the tactics we thought might play out here. 2v2 out of the red and black boat. So really tight race there as CJ just dumps a windward hull in. He's just lost the pressure there. Euroflex smoke away on two boards. Nicely downwind. Pavement struggle to rip away. Leeward hull dragging there. Now they're up on the foils.
And don't forget, that's when that side of the race course gets shallow, and it gets shallow very, very quickly. So they do have to be careful. It's particularly treacherous out there. CJ taking no gamble. Euroflex pushing it a little further, and Pavement is very much in contention at the moment.
Yeah, big ventilation on Pavement there as they come into that jibe, and you can see here the dark patches of water, those massive, massive gusts up to 20 knots, and the lulls, they're barely foiling. The lulls are down around 9, 10 knots, so this huge variation in gust pressure, and it's all about keeping a flat boat. Don't foil too high, but keep it on the foils. You don't want that middle hull in.
There's our stealth bomber filling the screen. Jack, what's happening on the water?
Everyone's getting around pretty cleanly at the moment. I can see they're sailing a little bit more conservatively. They got around the bearaway quite on low. They didn't fly too high, and they've got all 4 foils down. So they're just managing it at the moment and keeping it clean, as I said. So ID very much in touch. Everyone's still pretty close. So we might see a couple of the boats let it rip in the third laps.
Something to look forward to. Thank you, Jack. Looking forward to those building speeds. It's hard to say. That looks conservative from Euroflex at the moment. That looks pretty dialed in. She's looking very sharp and spending some good time on the foils before crashing down there, which will be something ID will look to capitalise on, and they've done so very quickly.
Yeah, another big ventilation there. It's really hard to keep these boats dialed in. You see CJ just getting absolutely carted down the boundary there, and he's going to be taking metres out of Euroflex. He's going to go for a jibe here in a second. He's just on the boundary. And Nathan just getting dialed in, and Pavement pulling off a really nice jibe in the top of your screen there. That's awesome work by them, and they're taking a huge chunk out of that lead as well. So they're not holding back. They're chasing down the metres.
Meanwhile, Tech 2's battle with record point continues apace, and some great foiling there from the boys.
It's an absolute jibe off here. You know, who can stick the most foiling jibes? We're seeing most of the teams stick them 50% of the time, and sometimes a bit more if you're having a good race. So really interesting to see the manoeuvres here as Nathan Eldridge opts for that left-hand turn. He's got good speed into the mark. Really key to get in and out of that bottom gate quickly. Don't get stuck on the escalator pointing downwind.
Jimmy, would they have had a chance to repair their broken parts there? Do you think they'd be operating at 100%? Or fair to say Euroflex might be a little less than optimum at the moment?
Yeah, no, they'll be back up to 100%. They'll all be in order. The one to watch here is Tech 2. They had that little damage on the rudder, so they could be a little compromised, and they're opting to follow Pavement here. Quite a slow manoeuvre as you see them just get stuck trying to get downwind here, but they've actually managed to keep it on the foils there. They've done an epic job getting around that mark. That was almost a full foiling U-turn, and they've just both overtaken ID. So ID from second into fourth here. They've had a not very good downwind at all, obviously stuck in a big lull.
But what about the epic nature of Pavement's effort there? She's come from the bleachers to throw it down.
Yeah, look, we rated Pavement highly in the breeze, and we knew they'd have a good little edge and slow start, but yeah, they've sailed straight on by, and you know, they've taken a huge chunk out of Euroflex here. This is not a close cross, but it's definitely within 50 metres there.
Yes, the wind sensei on board Pavement, Steve Thomas, will be loving this. A chance for his boys to put on a show after a miserable day by his own accounts on Friday and Saturday of racing. They've been on the podium at every regatta today, so this one is all about pride for the trio on Pavement.
Absolutely, and you can see they've taken a leaf out of the fleet's book and they've got that windward foil back up again, so they'll be hitting those massive speeds upwind. Obviously, it's windy enough to get back in that configuration.
And a lot of fun too. No doubt about that. This is what they've come here for. They were talking about big speeds. We know already in race 1, they were talking about 35 knots. I think we could be climbing even higher here.
Yeah, look, they'll be doing 20 knots easily upwind here. They've really got it dialed, and I think they've come back out on starboard here, and they might have a piece of Euroflex. They might have the advantage.
Well, there's not much in it, about 50 metres as it stands presently, and there's not much in the battle between Tech 2 and ID as well, so that's shaping up to be a close one again.
Yeah, so Euroflex still got the lead out to the right here, and we're seeing it's a very big downwind race here because we've got that current pushing up. It's taking a long time to get downwind, and the current's really helping them get up to the top mark here. They've got a high angle and easy speed.
And letting it rip on Tech 2 Parko at the moment as well. I think we got what we were hoping for, some earnest racing, some full throttle stuff as we round Mark 3, Euroflex the time to beat.
So you see Euroflex only Glen Ashby on trapeze there as they round the top mark. So Gooby and Nathan both sitting in for that, trying to get the boat in sync and all dialed in.
Oh, nice stuff. Look at that as Pavement stretches her legs as well. Just give her a sniff, Stevie Thomas and the boys, and they really do get snorting along at speed, don't they?
Yeah, so you can see these guys really holding on around these top marks. That leeward hull really wants to dig in, and any leeward here can easily cartwheel the boat and bring you completely unstuck here.
Look at that, 10 seconds between Tech 2 and ID on that third mark rounding. 11 seconds.
So ID just getting passed by Tech 2 there, so big gap between Tech 2 and record point here. That's not good for Phil and the boys in trying to snatch that second position as Euroflex just smoke another jibe there, and they seem to be all in control. 2 guys on the wire. Nathan very carefully putting lift into those foils to just get it foiling, but you put too much and you can just launch into the sky and crash back down. It has to be very, very gradual.
Glenn's working hard on that main, isn't he? You can see in his pained facial expressions, he's just really going through it at the moment. He wants to make sure they're going to start the regatta in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see Pavement here doing really well downwind. Tech 2 just struggling with that jibe. You can see that click more pressure, making everything harder and harder. Haven't done much sailing in this breeze. They don't know their settings. They don't know how the boat's going to react, so they're all learning on the fly here.
And how about that spot for the tinny there? The spectator craft getting a red-hot look at the best in the business.
Absolutely, and you can see Euroflex absolutely flawless here. So Goob's on the front just trimming that windward foil. He's got the ability to trim that foil. Nathan can't move that. He's got the traveller line in his hand, and you can see they have a lot of traveller down, a lot of main twist. Very different setup to a lot of other boats there. So they're just trying to foil. If they're on the foils, they're happy, and then they're just converting it to depth, trying to get down the track against this tide. And there you see ID, Traveller in the middle of the boat, a little less twist on the main. So they're trying to go for that sort of faster mode as opposed to Euroflex, and it's not quite paying off here. ID's just falling back a little bit. Tech 2 coming into the bottom mark. They could have a piece of pavement here.
Good little battle between Tech 2 and Pavement here, and Steve Thomas will be loving being out the front again.
Absolutely, he's going to opt for the right-hand turn here at the bottom mark. He's got to go back up to the top mark and then down to the finish. So getting towards the end of this race, 22 seconds of difference. And here you see he's got that windward foil down. He's opting for that higher, slower mode upwind. So once he tacks over onto port and he's got a bit more runway, he's going to bring that foil up and really let it rip. But out the short tack to that boundary on the left-hand side, he's going to leave that foil down. Something that no one else in the fleet is trying. No one else in the fleet has sort of tested that at all.
We'll find out if it's going to be a gamble that pays off as Euroflex is closing in. She's certainly optimising the conditions at the moment. Look at that. That's very comfortable stuff.
There you go.
Glenn Ashby almost horizontal there. It's
3 strings low hooks for these boys. You can see fully shoulders back, doing everything they can to pull the boat down and keep the power up. And Nathan just got his head perched up. He's looking upwind. He's looking at the puff he's about to sail into, and he's just flying the boat, without even thinking about it. He doesn't have to look at the buttons he needs to push. He just plays them in his hand without thinking. He's just steering the boat through the breeze like a normal boat.
And this has been a great leg for the guys on Euroflex. They've almost doubled their margin. It's blown out to 200 metres over pavement. And that is the class of the Dream Team. Just when the challenge comes down, Jimmy, they answer and they return it with interest. And it is an interesting climax, Jack.
Yeah, so positioned up here at the top mark. We're going to see Euroflex come hitting around the top mark and get up to that boat. So, as you say, they've doubled that lead. I'm really impressed with Steve and the boys on the pavement. They've sailed excellent as an race, fast upwind and downwind, but just probably did 1 or 2 extra jibes than Euroflex. So the gap's gotten a bit wider, but here you go.
Yeah, so see the Euroflex just smoking that bear away. They drop the windward foil before they round, and Gooby's just playing that as they turn, as they crash off the foils there, but absolutely got to thread the eye of a needle there. It's so difficult to pull these boats away in this much pressure.
Well, Euroflex will almost be tasting the champagne on the podium at the moment. They've just got to stay out of trouble, but Steve Thomas will be looking to spoil that party in any way possible. And it seems to me the guys on pavement are operating perhaps a little bit more enthusiastically than they have been all weekend. They know it's still to race for at the moment.
Yeah, they're being really particular with their modes here, what they choose to sail upwind with, and just a little bit of leeward heel, digging that bow under here, and the boat just launches straight up onto the foils there. Little crash down, you can see that's quite a common feature. Initial foil around the top mark, too much
What about
lift,
this between ID and Euroflex
down
as well? No one's blinking at the moment. Someone's got to shut their eyes. Oh, goodness me, they had to touch down there as well to avoid a certain collision.
That was super close. Euroflex on port had to give way. Throwing that jibe, which is a bit of a nasty one, a bit of a crash jibe, that one had to just keep clear.
And, well, it's brinkmanship sometimes in this racing, and, it was just a case of ID really making Euroflex adjust there.
Absolutely. You can see how much load's on that main when Glenn Ashby has to bend his knees, bend his back, and use everything to get it on. There's a massive amount of load once they switch to the small jib on these mains. Very, very, very physical boats, and especially at that speed going downwind, Awesome foiling jibe there. That's just absolutely textbook as they sort of getting towards the finish here. They got 1 or 2 more manoeuvres, full foiling jibe.
Gee, they look wonderful, don't they, when they're up like that? Such a treat, and must be so nice for everyone involved with the SuperFoiler to be witnessing them sail to such a high standard like this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so graceful and so much breeze. It's amazing to see them not pounding into the waves and just gliding over the top.
Euroflex heading right to the boundary here.
And we've got a close battle between ID and Record Point as well. Not much in that one, only sort of 50 metres. So Phil will be snapping at the heels of CJ there on this next downwind and see who can throw some foil jibes and really eat up those metres.
Well, for Record Point, it'd be great if they can reel in ID, but the one they really want to knock off is Tech 2. We'll keep an eye on that as we continue spying Euroflex galloping towards yet more glory. And this will be the final turn. There we go. How about that from Euroflex? They've come to the Gold Coast and now they've got something to boast about.
Yeah, awesome work there from the guys. Another win. Well deserved. They absolutely smashed that last race. That's the true mark of a champion. When the pressure's on, they just stand up and deliver.
And they've certainly stamped that one. It's 3 from 3 in terms of regattas now, Jimmy. Adelaide, Geelong, now the Gold Coast. Gee, they'd be contemplating what might come next in Busselton, and perhaps a little
nervous after they were really vulnerable early.
Absolutely. You know, the pressure's going to be coming on for those guys. They know the fleet's improving and they can see these guys as they're coming downwind now. They're smoking these forward jibes and the gaps are getting smaller, so they're not going to get away with the mistakes they used to, and it's going to be a whole lot more close battles as we get through the series.
And you called it, Jimmy. You said pavement would really be well suited to these kind of conditions, and Steve has shown that that was absolutely correct.
Yeah, these guys are solid in the breeze. Just crossed the finish line there, getting the hooter. Awesome work by them.
Okay, putting her in the water, Jen.
There you go, Luke Parkinson putting it in the water, gents. I won't flick you off this time.
Wasn't worth it.
How about that? Well done to Tech 2. They've got onto the podium and they're in second position there. That is a sterling effort for them after so much adversity in the racing. And here's the winner of our first double points race today, still soldiering on.
Taking it easy on the old girl.
And a pretty nice consolation prize awaiting them.
Yeah, and you can hear Parker there saying he's going to take it easy on the old girl, preserve the assets, which is something we don't hear out of his mouth too often, but CJ's doing an awesome job smoking in here to the finish on the foils. Happy days for these guys. One more jibe.
And it's all about momentum, carrying it over to the next regatta, and I feel that the ID boys will be heading into Bustleton with more confidence than we had, of course, in the last start of this regatta in the Gold Coast.
Absolutely, yeah. They're going to be really confident going into Bustleton. Fang, he's from Perth, so he knows the waters, he knows the breeze over there. He's going to be right at home, and really tough race here for record point. You know, they really tried to take it to Tech 2 in that start, and obviously the penalty went against them. But that's the tactics of going into the final race when you're glued on points. You know, you really got to throw something at the other team, and unfortunately for Phil and the boys, you know, it hasn't come off this time.
Well, it looks like they've got plenty of energy. I wonder, Jimmy, dare I even dream that they might head out again after that? I mean, they showed that it was very possible to negotiate the Broadwater safely. Just one more?
Look, it wouldn't surprise me at all. You know, Phil's the type of guy that if he knows he's got some areas he needs to improve, then he's just so hungry to go out there and improve. And yeah, I'm sure if they'll let him do some training, he'll definitely be out there. But yeah, tough race for these guys. They're going to be a bit disappointed, you know, but we'll wait to see the final results for this regatta, but they might have still locked in third place on the leaderboard. We'll have to wait to see.
It was really that penalty at the start of the race that crippled them. It took them out of the contest straight away. And that is going to be something that will haunt those guys until the next regatta.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's the hard thing about these boats is you know what you want to achieve, and it's not always that easy to achieve it. So trying to get a hook on someone or gap off above or execute the perfect start at this stage of the game is pretty difficult, you know. When you really know the boat and how it reacts, it's easy to pull off those scenarios, and that's what Phil's so good at. But you know, a bit more time in the boats, and that's where his skills will really shine through as that match racing world champion, and you know, he'll be able to get on top of those one-on-one battles.
As we look at Josh McKnight and Olivia Price and Harry Morton racing towards the finish line, it's been a great regatta from them as well. Their best performance arrived on Friday. They achieved a second position. Such is the strength of this clean-made team that they are always punching above their weight.
Yeah, such a solid team, and especially in the breeze. You know, I don't think we've seen a single capsize from them yet in the series so far. So, look, they're solid in the breeze, and they got some good talent on board. Olivia Price got that silver medal in the match racing at the Olympics. Josh McKnight, Moth World Champion, and the big guy on the bow there, you can see Harry Morton is an absolute weapon at getting those boards up and down. 21 years old, but a really, really talented 49er crew. So, look, these guys are getting it together, and they just need to put a few results together, and they'll be right up there in the series standings.
Yeah, they're a class act. We've spoken about, you know, a couple of the sailors that really catch the eye of the young up-and-comers. Olivia Price is one of those, being the only female skipper in the series. She's the best foiling skipper in the world right now, and certainly a role model to a lot of young boys and girls.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you can see how hard these conditions are for sailors like Nathan Outteridge and the other Cup sailors who have years and years and years of experience on foils, and this is where Olivia's really been thrown in the deep end, and it's just amazing to see how well she's picking it up. And this is the hardest foiling boat there is to sail for a skipper. There is no boat that's really harder. You know, you have to trapeze, fly the boat. There's so much happening, and she's done an amazing job to get as good as she is at this stage of the game.
One of my favourite skippers to listen to as well, Olivia. She's always very animated on the boat, always has an opinion, and always laughing, smiling, having fun. And that's what it's all about. That's what you want to see, that they are enjoying themselves and able to savour the moment as we savour the results from race 8. Euroflex again, 16 minutes. This is so good to see, though, those times, how close every single superfoiler is. Pavement, a minute 7 behind. Tech 2, just a minute 21 adrift of Euroflex. ID in the 2.5 minute zone. And then 3 minutes for Euroflex, 3.5, given they had the penalty, is really impressive. And CleanMade just over 5 minutes behind Euroflex. That, you know, we forecast close racing, and the Gold Coast has certainly delivered such. And Surfers Paradise, the sun's melted away as we look at our regatta points after 8 races. Euroflex scraping home with 50 points, just 8 points, nudging out Tech 2. Luke Parkinson will be chuffed with that. Record Point doing enough to hold on to the podium, their first ever. Well done to Phil and the boys. ID, after a sluggish start by their own standards, on 31. And Pavement, what a great last race they had there. Cruel almost in a way to knock CleanMade into 6th, only on the back of that last race. So it really was decided on that race number 8.
Yeah, look, it's been a tough regatta for those guys. You know, a few incidents here and there, and, you know, you lose points, they just bleed away so quickly. And awesome work by Pavement to step up there at the end and really produce and get back up the leaderboard there a little bit. You know, they started an absolutely amazing race, and see how tough the conditions are there offshore. You know, a massive swell rolling in at the moment, and the breeze to suit.
So this is our series standings. This is how it all chocks up after 3 rounds, and it is Euroflex on top, 18 points. But Tech 2 and Pavement are eyeing each other off. They're on 11 each. And look at that, Record Point and ID also battling furiously, also locked on 9 points apiece, and very much ready to pounce. Olivia Price, 6 points. So really not much variance amongst our top 6 here. Plenty to play for as we head to our next regatta. Jimmy in Bustleton.
Yeah, it's going to heat up as we get towards the pointy end of the series here, and yeah, those results are super tight. You can see almost every single boat's been on the podium, and people have their strengths and weaknesses so vividly. You know who's good in the breeze and the light and the offshore venues and the flat water venues. So it's really tough for these boats to get an average sort of score out and help those overall results.
It looks like today the key was actually sailing as little a distance as possible, which hasn't always been the best way to take it down, Jimmy. Any surprises on the condition to see that Record Point particularly sailed so much further there?
Yeah, look, we know that Phil traditionally has sort of always sailed a little bit hotter, a little faster, which converts that further distance to be sailed. And there is a middle ground, as you said. You don't always want to sail the least distance because that usually means you're going a bit slower. But yeah, there is sort of a sweet spot there you try and find. And here's the average speeds. That's the really important one. Euroflex up there with 16.15 knots as an average over the course, which is absolutely crazy. They're doing 20s upwind, 30s downwind. It's just incredible.
Yeah, mid-30s, they were saying today. That was their take on the top speed. I wonder how it chalks up with the maximum speed from the ones with the ticker in hand. And, well, Paul Campbell-James has the bragging rights this time around. He's clocking in almost 28 knots of maximum boat speed there. So there you go. That's how it looks officially in terms of max speeds. But as we know, when we go fishing, you've always got to embellish a little bit. If it was a little biter that you had to throw back, it was a kingfish tuna. We all know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, during racing, they are doing such short distances, and that's why we see the speeds down a bit. And in those training runs, they can really let it rip and see how fast they can go. So really high speed to be doing during racing when you're bouncing off those boundaries.
Especially on such a narrow but no doubt beautiful race course. I'm going to be sad to say goodbye to the Gold Coast when you've got vistas like this and racing like we've been spoiled to over the last 3 days. It's been a Grand Prix kind of carnival atmosphere here with all the spectator crafts, and it was so great that we could manage to squeeze in 2 races today. At one stage it was looking like we might not even manage one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so awesome to see these boats sail in these top-end conditions, absolutely on the knife edge of how bad it can go, and, flipping the boat over and having those big crashes. So such epic racing here in the Gold Coast. It's been unreal.
Euroflex certainly put on notice this regatta. They did it easy in Adelaide and made it look so simple when they ventured to Geelong, but this has been a real struggle for them. I feel like they may feel like they escaped with one of those. I recall in the first racing day, Record Point almost snatched one, and in our second day of racing, of course, you'll remember Tech 2 very nearly almost jagged one. They were a second behind. Those two races go either way. All of a sudden, Euroflex aren't sitting so pretty anymore, and they head into Bustleton with some serious headaches.
Yeah, absolutely. The peloton's definitely catching up, aren't they? And as I said before, Euroflex have definitely used up all those lucky cards. Like, so many races coming down to a second that have gone their way, and that's just not going to be the case as the series moves on. The teams are going to capitalise on those mistakes and those guys, and they just won't get away with those sort of things. So the series is definitely going to heat up as it moves over to Bustleton and the big breeze. Anything can happen over there.
Yeah, it is breezy and reliable breezes, and we've got so many Perth sailors in our circuit as well. We've already spoken about Steve Thomas. We've got a couple more. But let's focus on Gold Coast. Jack, who are you with?
So, bit of deja vu, lads. That's 3 in a row. Fantastic effort again. Bit tougher to get this one over the line, Nate.
Yeah, it was pretty fresh today, and we had a big mishap in that first one, trying to avoid a Record Point just ahead of us and sort of sent us into a bit of a frenzy. But happy to get that last race in and finish where we belong up on top.
You look pretty under control around that last race. Glennie, what was going on?
Oh yeah, no, totally under control there. No, look, it's loose yachting. It might look under control, but I guarantee that anyone that comes and sits in our chair will be getting the ride of their life. That's for sure.
Goobs in the bow. Oh, bit of a breakage there, but it's nothing major. Goobs, all good in the bow. How was that down that run? A bit of porpoising, a bit of action.
Yeah, it's when the pitch changes a lot, it's quite hard to set the rake on the boards to fly you steady. So we had a bit of porpoise action going on, but yeah, it was good fun. And in the end of the day, I think it was great that we got that race away. Good action and close racing. It's good.
So were you guys aware that the points were quite close and that if you had finished fourth, there was a chance you might have lost that one?
I wasn't really thinking about the points, to be honest. We were just trying to get the vessel around in one piece, and we did a great job in that last race. And as Gooby and Glennie were saying, it might have looked easy, but it was really difficult, really hard to sail these boats. Such a short space. We would have loved to have lifted that windward board and got it going downwind, but we only had enough time to jibe before we had to go back, even with both boards down. So, happy to take another win and looking forward to the next event in Bustleton.
Well done, guys.
Back,
to get the champagne.
Back where they belong.
Where's the champagne? Hold on. We'll let go.
Just like to say special thanks to Kinley Fowler and Harry McGwell on the shore. They did an excellent job.
Little shout out there. Nice work, Goobs.
Well, the boys with the chockies and the spoils of victory there. Interesting to hear Nathan say that they were back to where they were belonging. They feel like they should be on top, and you can forgive them for that because, well, for one, it looks like Jack's done a bit of damage to their boat, but also
you've
got to surprise and celebrate the good moments, and they deserve to win that regatta. They were the best boat. They just got a few scares.
Yeah, absolutely. They started really, really well this regatta, and so many changing conditions, and good to see that Gooby knows who to look after to keep the boat going fast. Thank you, Kinley and Harry there. Those guys have been working really hard on the boat, and they can sail as well as they like, but if the boat's not working and the boat's not sailing well, then none of this is going to convert to a result. So good to see the work from the shore crews there again, getting the boats around, no breakages, everything all good on the crafts out there today.
A bit of a preemptive thank you there from Kinley Fowler as well, given there was a little bit of a touchdown earlier. Maybe there is a little damage we haven't seen, and he's already saying thanks so much, we'll need a bit of a hand later on. Well, Jimmy, we know the celebrations will be long and they'll be very sweet for Euroflex, but they'll also be pretty nice as well for ID, given they've become the first SuperFoiler to knock down our champions Euroflex. They may have won 3 regattas now, but they haven't been clean sweeps, and that's something to celebrate before we head to Bustleton. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as we've enjoyed bringing you the coverage. On behalf of Jimmy, Jack and myself, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in Western Australia. Bye for now.